Hey guys, tonight we're not talking about knights, dragons or princesses. We're getting down and dirty with the real MVPs of the Middle Ages, the peasants. These guys literally invented toughing it out. Forget your flimsy camping trips and your cozy winter nights with a smart thermostat. We're about to dive into the truly shocking, bizarre and horrifying realities of surviving a medieval winter. Get ready to have your mind blown and your luxury-loving modern soul shook. So let's dim the lights, grab a blanket, a clean one preferably, and let's get into the 10 most insane survival hacks from a time when not dying was the #1 priority. Winter took my toes and the rats took the rest. Do you think winter is harsh? Medieval farmers would laugh in your face. They say winter builds character, but in medieval times, it mostly just built corpses. Let me set the scene. You're a humble peasant in 1349. You've survived the plague, starvation, a bishop stealing your wife, and your neighbor accusing you of witchcraft just because you grew 2 turnips instead of 1. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, winter arrives, and I don't mean cozy Netflix winter. I mean, I can't feel my soul through my frozen arse cheeks winter. Your house. Let's not call it a house, it's more like a glorified pile of damp wood with a hole in the roof that lets in every snowflake like it's paying rent. The wind whistles through the cracks in the walls, and your only insulation is the hope that your neighbor dies first so you can burn his furniture. Oh, and rats. So many rats. Fat, confident, unionized rats. They don't just live with you, they act like they own the place. You've named one of them Gregory. He stares at you while you sleep. You don't trust Gregory. Now here's the kicker. You've had nothing but cabbage water and regret for dinner, and the fire's finally lit. It's weak, pathetic, flickering like a candle in a wind tunnel, but it's something. You curl up near it, feet closest to the warmth, because priorities, and drift off into the best sleep you've had in weeks, which isn't saying much. And then you wake up. But something's wrong. Why is your foot not touching the ground? Why is there a wet sound? You lift your head, look down, and there they are. Not 1, not 2, but 5 rats nibbling your toes like they're chicken wings at a tavern. One of them even burps. You scream flail kick, but by then the damage is done. Your big toe gone. Second toe, half price, that pinky toe. They left it probably out of pity or bad taste. Congratulations. You just became a medieval statistic. Welcome to the phenomenon scholars now call rodent mutilation. Yes, it's real, documented in several dusty medical texts with cheerful titles like Diseases of the Peasantry, a Study in Despair. Turns out when your house is basically a rat Airbnb and your body temperature drops to cold corpse chic, your limbs become a snack pack for the night shift of rodents. But here's where it gets absolutely bonkers. People actually plan for this. Some clever desperate villagers aware that rats preferred decaying flesh would smear pig fat or goose grease on the already infected parts of their body like a bait-and-switch trap to lure the rats to eat the bad bits and leave the healthy ones intact. It's like medieval surgery. Except your surgeon is a rodent and your anesthesia is wishful thinking. One chronicler even described a man who smeared mutton grease on his gangrenous finger, laid down like a buffet table, and let nature do the rest. When he woke up, his finger was gone. And so was the infection. Did it work? technically, yes. Did he ever sleep again? Unlikely. You might wonder, why didn't they just trap the rats? Oh, sweet, innocent 21st century soul. Rat traps. Please, they didn't have metal to spare for traps when it was being used to patch holes in roofs or stolen by the local lord to decorate his chamber pot. And even if you caught one killing a rat, meant offending the local priest who warned that every creature had a divine purpose, even if that purpose was to devour your extremities in your sleep. So you adjusted, learned to sleep with one eye open and your feet wrapped in 3 layers of wool pigskin and denial. But still, every night you'd lie there thinking, will tonight be the night I wake up 2 fingers short or worse? Will they go for the nose? Next, people today complain about noisy neighbors or bad Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, your medieval doppelganger was lying in a puddle of their own fear sweat, hoping to make it through the night with all 10 toes. And let me tell you, keeping all your digits was like winning the village lottery, except the prize was not being eaten alive. And don't get me started on the sounds. You ever tried to fall asleep to the sound of tiny teeth gnawing on wood cloth, and possibly your left foot? It's like ASMR if the S stood for screaming. One guy in the next village actually went insane from the sound of rats chewing through his bedposts. Started talking to a turnip. He called Sir Geoffrey. Last I heard, they were engaged. Of course, this wasn't just about rats. The cold itself was a killer. The kind of cold that freezes your piss midstream. The kind that makes your teeth rattle so hard you worry they'll chip each other. People used to go to bed in all their clothes wrapped in straw animal hides, and the occasional dead cousin, don't ask, and still wake up with frostbite. And when frostbite set in, well, that was its own horror show. First came the numbness, then the color change, white, then purple, then black like a reverse bruise. Then the skin stiffened, cracked, and if you were lucky, fell off. If not, it rotted on you. And guess who smelled that from a mile away? That's right, Gregory and his squad. So what did people do for warmth? They huddled, everyone in one room, grandparents, parents, children, goats, chickens, and sometimes a really confused-looking cow. Privacy was a myth, and so was hygiene, but at least the cow was warm, and if you were really lucky, someone farted and the room heated up a whole 2 degrees. Eventually, if your limbs weren't claimed by frostbite or rats, they might be stolen by infection. One minor scratch could become a medieval horror movie, complete with pus screaming and a priest muttering about divine punishment. There was a theory back then that cold weather froze sin inside the body, which honestly explains a lot about monks. By the way, you ever wonder why medieval paintings show saints with missing fingers or stumpy feet? Yeah, that wasn't artistic liberty, that was realism. They probably posed like that right after waking up and noticing Gregory had claimed another toe for his winter stash. So next time you complain about a chilly morning or your heated blanket malfunctioning, take a moment. Imagine waking up in a house made of sadness, wrapped in pig fat, wondering if tonight's sleep will cost you a limb. Picture the scratching, the chewing, the slow realization that something isn't quite attached anymore. And as you drift off to your cozy, rat-free slumber, think of your poor medieval twin whispering a bedtime prayer. Dear God, please let me wake up with both feet, because in winter, frost may take your warmth, but rats, they take the rest. The wattle and daub house, less of a home, more of an enthusiastic wind tunnel. Imagine the worst apartment you've ever lived in. Now take away the windows, the plumbing, the heating, and the door that actually closes. Congratulations. You've just walked into a medieval wattle and daub house. Historians refer to it as a construction method. Personally, I see it more as a long-standing architectural prank. These homes were built by weaving wooden sticks together like an oversized basket, then plastering them with a sticky mixture of mud straw and a generous helping of animal dung. Yes, dung. On purpose. It was like someone asked, what if walls could smell worse over time? And then followed through with enthusiasm. The result was a house that looked like it was built by someone who got tired halfway through and decided, good enough. The walls were so thin you could hear everything happening outside, including birds gossiping, goats judging you, and the occasional spider clearing its throat. Privacy was a fantasy. Soundproofing? Absolutely not. If your neighbor sneezed, your entire family blessed him through the wall before realizing he wasn't even in the same building. The wind didn't just sneak in, it threw itself through every crack like it had something to prove. It didn't whisper or breeze, it howled. It slammed into your house like an angry ghost with commitment issues. If you've ever lived in an apartment where the window doesn't quite close and the wind whistles through, just imagine that experience magnified until it becomes an involuntary lifestyle. On a good day, the inside of your hut might feel slightly warmer than the outside. Slightly. As in, if it was snowing, you might be upgraded from hypothermia to mild shivering. On a bad day, your home transformed into an enthusiastic wind tunnel with a soggy floor and a leaky roof. Let's talk about the roof. It was made of thatch, which is a fancy word for dried grass. It gave the home a charming rustic look like the set of a low-budget fantasy film. Unfortunately, it also invited rain snowbirds and squirrels to drop by whenever they felt like it. And they often did. Sometimes in the middle of the night you'd wake up with a pigeon sitting on your face and a squirrel fighting a mouse over breadcrumbs near your pillow. If you were lucky, they didn't poop on you. The floor was made of good old-fashioned dirt. Not polished wood, not stone, not even pebbles. Just dirt. And when it rained, that dirt turned into mud. And not cute spa day mud, but the kind that sucks off your shoes and threatens to absorb your will to live. If you stepped too hard, you risked creating a puddle. If you dropped your bread, it vanished into the brown abyss, never to return. You didn't mop the floor, you accepted it. Sometimes you even named the bigger puddles. That's Dave. He's lived here longer than us. Of course, every home needs a bathroom. Unfortunately, medieval peasants solved that problem by not solving it. Chamber pots were common, but they were more like a suggestion than a solution. And if you had to go in the middle of the night, you either walked outside into the freezing darkness or got very creative. Either way, hygiene was a negotiable concept. As for heat, your only option was a small fire pit in the middle of the room. It did provide some warmth, especially to your left foot if you sat close enough, but the rest of your body, frozen. The smoke didn't rise politely through a chimney. Instead, it swirled around the room, making every mealtime feel like a barbecue inside a closet. If you coughed enough, it meant the fire was working. If you stopped coughing, someone checked your pulse. And let's not forget the bugs. Fleas, lice, flies, beetles, and other unnamed horrors lived in every corner. Your mattress was straw. Your pillow was more straw. Both were basically bug hotels with room service. No matter how many times you tried to clean yourself, the insects returned like toxic exes who just couldn't let go. Every night was a new episode of Guess That Bite. Now you might be wondering how big these homes were. The answer is not. Most were one-room spaces smaller than your average college dorm. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, and livestock pen all merged into one open-concept disaster. Your entire extended family lived together, usually with at least one goat and a chicken named Greg, who had no respect for personal space. You could smell dinner, hear Grandpa snoring, and step on a sleeping cousin, all without moving more than 2 steps. Speaking of dinner, the kitchen setup was also humble. A pot over the fire, some root vegetables, maybe a piece of salted meat if you were lucky. No fridge, no oven, no complaints. Mostly because complaining required energy, and you used all of that trying not to freeze to death or get eaten by your own ceiling. And the smells, oh the smells, a beautiful mixture of smoke, sweat, livestock, unwashed clothes, wet dog, stale cabbage, and whatever that thing in the corner used to be before it died. You grew used to it eventually, mostly because your nose gave up. Even in the summer, things didn't improve much. Without insulation, your house became an oven. Not a convection oven, mind you, more like one of those sketchy microwaves that overheat and explode. The thatch roof trapped heat like it was its job, and there was no escape. You couldn't open a window because you didn't have one. You just sat in your steaming mud box, sweating through your only tunic, wondering if this was the year you'd finally melt. Despite all this, people lived. They grew up, got married, had children, shared laughter, and told stories. They sang, danced, fell in love, and created memories in these little dung and straw boxes. It wasn't luxury, wasn't comfort, but it was home. And that somehow made it enough. Today we complain when the Wi-Fi cuts out for 3 minutes. We throw tantrums when our takeout is late. We get angry when the heating is uneven between rooms. Meanwhile, peasants used to spoon with livestock just to survive the night, and their roofs routinely collapsed during heavy rain. Perspective, as they say, is everything. So the next time you sigh about your tiny apartment or groan about rising rent, remember this: at least you don't have to scoop water off your floor every time it rains, fight fleas before breakfast, or share a bedroom with a goat who snores. And if you do, well, maybe you're just ahead of the historical curve. The human onion, fashion layers, itchiness, and strategic filth. You think winter's tough because your heater takes 5 seconds to warm up. That's adorable. Try surviving a 14th century European frost wave with exactly 2 shirts, 0 laundry detergent, and the unsettling possibility of waking up next to a goat. Welcome to medieval fashion, where the runway is muddy, the outfits are itchy, and the vibe is pure survival desperation, layered in regret. Imagine this: you wake up and it's so cold your soul tries to escape through your toes. There's frost on the inside of your wall. The roof is leaking again, because of course it is. Someone sneezed and now the whole room smells like fermented turnip and something that might have been alive once. You know you need to get dressed, but you only own 5 pieces of clothing and 4 of them are already on your body. Congratulations, brave peasant. You've officially entered human onion mode. Maximum layers, minimum dignity peak, discomfort. Step 1, embrace the layer life. Forget style, forget color palettes, forget looking cute. Your only mission is survival layering. You grab your first tunic, it's stiff, scratchy, smells like it's been to war lost and never emotionally recovered. You pull it on, then comes tunic number 2, which is like the first one's emotionally damaged little brother. It's thinner, holier, not in a spiritual way, and might be held together by sheer willpower. Socks, loosely woven bundles of depression. Your cloak. Imagine someone tried to make a coat out of a rug, got bored halfway and said, "Yeah, that's good enough." You look around for a mirror, but then remember mirrors are luxury items for rich people or witches, so you check your reflection in a puddle. Verdict: you resemble a sack of potatoes that was mugged by a moth and tied together with hope. But you're slightly warmer, and that's all that matters in the game of life called "Don't die of frostbite." Step 2, the itch is real and it's not playing around. Wool in the Middle Ages wasn't the soft alpaca blend luxury influencers wear while holding artisanal mugs of oat milk lattes. No, this was angry wool. Wool that wanted to fight you. Wool that could exfoliate your skin off your soul. Within hours, your arms are twitching, your back is throwing a tantrum, and your legs feel like they're being tickled by 1,000 angry bees. You can't scratch fast enough. Your body is staging a protest and there is no negotiation. But do you take anything off? Absolutely not. Comfort is for future generations. You cling to warmth like a sleep-deprived toddler clings to a blanket. Step 3, strategic filth, aka medieval Gore-Tex. Let's talk hygiene. Spoiler alert, it didn't exist. Washing your clothes meant breaking through frozen river ice, soaking them in sub-zero swamp water, and then waiting 3 to 5 business days for them to dry in the cold wind while birds judged you. By the time your only tunic dried, it had frozen into a wool popsicle. So peasants just didn't wash. Not because they were lazy, because they were cold and smart. Over time, the dirt, oil, and unspoken sins formed a thick crust that somehow acted as insulation. It's not just grime, it's technology. Earthy warmth, they called it. I call it the original Gore-Tex. Your crusty hoodie might be gross, but it's saving your life. So why wash off what took weeks to build? That's medieval logic. Step 4, smell like you mean it. Perfume in the Middle Ages was not a thing. Forget hints of vanilla and sunlit forest breeze. Think goat armpit meets sweaty socks boiled in cabbage. But hey, no one's judging because everyone smelled like that. And honestly, if you still had a working nose, congratulations, you hadn't frozen to death yet. In a village where everyone smells like barnyard soup, nobody's throwing shade. Stink wasn't a social failure, it was a survival flex. And let's not forget the final, most powerful layer: confidence. Not the cool, modern kind, the filthy, frozen, slightly delusional kind. Because let's be real, medieval fashion wasn't about expressing your personality. It was about not dying in a ditch. If that meant sleeping in the same clothes you worked in, peeing in a bucket because it was too cold to go outside, and waking up wrapped around your cousin like a meat burrito of body heat, so be it. I still remember one legendary winter night so cold, the fire gave up trying. Me and my brothers piled up under one scratchy blanket. I was the middle layer in a 3-kid lasagna. My sister walked in, looked at us and said, "Why do you all look like a dying onion?" I just nodded and whispered, "Because we are bonus content medieval cold-proofing hacks that kinda worked." There was fire banking, which basically meant burying your fire in ashes overnight, so it would maybe still be glowing in the morning. It was like putting your fireplace on sleep mode. Sometimes it worked, sometimes you woke up and it was just sadness and smoke. Another hack, hot rocks. You'd heat up a stone by the fire and shove it under your tunic like a caveman heating pad. It stayed warm for 5 minutes and then turned into a cold disappointment pressed against your spleen. Also, let's not forget the ultimate pro move, never taking your clothes off ever. Not to sleep, not to bathe, not even to check for rashes. Because if you took anything off, you risked frostbite and potential emotional collapse. But as with all hacks, there were side effects. Lice, not the casual kind.
Full-blown lice parties with music and tiny rave lights, rashes, mystery itches, and unexplainable bumps were just standard peasant problems. You didn't complain, you just itched and moved on. And that medieval scent combo of goat sweat and boiled regret, honestly, it doubled as a burglar deterrent. No one's robbing a guy who smells like the underworld's armpit. And then came the holy day laundry, the post-winter purge. You peeled your medieval onesie off your body like a banana made of shame. You dragged it to the river, dunked it like you were baptizing a demon, and prayed the smell wouldn't kill the fish. The water turned brown, the frogs evacuated, your shirt hissed. But once it was clean, you threw it back on and started the cycle all over again. Because medieval fashion was not about aesthetics, it was about not freezing your butt off in a hut made of mud while a squirrel watched you from the rafters.
So next time you complain about your coat being too puffy or your scarf not matching your boots, remember you are not a human onion. You are not scratching through 4 layers of angry wool while wondering if that smell is you or the dog. You are not sharing bed space with 3 siblings and a chicken for warmth. You are living in the future. You are thriving. You smell amazing. But if you ever get sucked into a time portal and wake up in the Middle Ages, just remember the peasant fashion Holy Trinity layer. It crusted, own it. Because style fades, but dirty warmth is forever. The human lasagna, sleeping strategy, no personal space, just pure survival. So you think winter is rough because your heater makes weird noises or you have to wear fuzzy socks to bed cute. Medieval peasants would hear that and laugh in 14 different dialects. Because back then, central heating meant squeezing between your uncle and a goat on a straw mat that smells like regret. Welcome to the human lasagna method, a cozy little tradition where personal space goes to die. You walk into your medieval hut. It's basically a wooden shoebox with ambitions. Wind slips through every crack in the wall like it paid rent. The fireplace. That's just a glorified smoke machine with a personality disorder. So what's the plan? Easy. When night hits and temperatures drop, like your phone battery at 2%, the entire household turns into a live-action casserole of flesh and hope. You lie down with your parents, your siblings, your cousins, probably someone else's baby, and a few bonus animals thrown in for insulation. That's not an exaggeration. Chickens, sure. A pig or 2, absolutely. A cow, if you're lucky and wealthy, which you're not. The rule is simple. If it breathes and radiates heat, it's part of the sleep pile. Now let's talk strategy. The center of the pile is prime real estate. That's where you want to be. It's the VIP section of this sleep rave, where you're surrounded on all sides by living, snoring space heaters. Everyone's packed so tight you can't even roll over without starting a civil war. Someone coughs, half the room gets pink eye. But at least your toes aren't falling off. You poor peasant that you are, aim for the middle, but end up on the edge. Congratulations, you've won a night next to the wall, which is basically a slab of frozen wood. It radiates the same warmth as your ex's last message, absolutely none. Every gust of wind through the cracks feels like a slap from an ice demon. Your only hope is to cling to your brother's sweaty back like a barnacle and pray he doesn't turn over. And don't even think about moving. No one moves. The moment someone tries to get comfortable, it's game over. That shift creates a draft that snakes through the pile like a ninja, and suddenly grandma's yelling the baby's awake. and you've committed a medieval war crime. There are no second chances. You freeze together or you don't sleep at all. As for what you're sleeping on, oh honey, it's a straw mattress, which sounds cute until you lie on it and realize it's crunchy, pokey, and home to several colonies of fleas with names and families. Every time you shift, it sounds like you're rolling on a pile of dead leaves, and let's not even get started on the itching. You'll scratch yourself raw by morning, but hey, at least that keeps the blood flowing. And the smell, oh the smell. You know that rich, earthy, musky scent of a yoga studio after hot vinyasa with no ventilation. Multiply that by 10, add livestock, subtract hygiene, and you're getting close. The hut has one vibe, and that vibe is wet dog wearing cabbage perfume. But your nose stops noticing after a while, mostly because it's frozen shut. You might be asking, why not build more rooms, or beds, or get blankets? Oh, sweet summer child. Those are luxury-level dreams. Wood is expensive, fabric is rarer than teeth in a chicken, and why waste money on separate beds when you can all share one gloriously itchy disease vector? This isn't just a family, it's a heating unit with feelings. Sometimes just to make things spicy, someone will fart in the middle of the pile. And because there's zero airflow, it just stays, lingers, mutates. And you lie there blinking into the darkness, wondering if this is what dying feels like. But still, nobody moves. Because even a fart is warmer than the cold.
And this wasn't just for one night. No, this was every night for months. Medieval winters lasted forever. Your only sense of time was how long it had been since your last warm bowel movement. And don't forget, you still had to get up before sunrise to feed the animals, break the ice in the water trough, and pray your toes didn't snap off like icicles. But there's something kind of beautiful about it too. The whole family mashed together like a human sandwich, snoring in sync, breathing the same air, occasionally smacking each other in the face during sleep. It was bonding in the same way that shared trauma is bonding. You didn't just survive winter, you survived it together as one sweaty, resilient blob of humanity. And you learned to adapt. Some people became experts at the turnover without causing a draft move. Others got creative turning leftover sacks or old tunics into makeshift blankets.
Someone once sewed chicken feathers into their pants and called it innovation. The bar was low, but morale was lower, so it worked. By the way, no one changed clothes, ever. Your nightwear was your daywear, and your daywear was your weekwear, and your weekwear was your funeral outfit. And why bother undressing meant exposing skin to the air, and the air was betrayal. So you slept in layers of wool, linen, dirt, and shame. Sometimes, if the family was big enough, they'd sleep in shifts. The early sleepers warmed up the bed, and the late sleepers slid in like smug parasites. Fights broke out, alliances were made. One time a cousin got banned from the center spot for drooling too aggressively. It was politics, but horizontal. You start to realize that this whole situation wasn't just about staying warm, it was about survival math. More bodies equals more heat. Less movement equals less heat loss. No dignity equals better chance at seeing spring. It was biology, baby. Your ancestors didn't have thermostats. They had Cousin Carl's armpit. And in the dead of night, when you couldn't sleep because someone's knee was in your kidney and a chicken was laying an egg 2 feet from your face, you'd look around and think, this is it. Peak medieval vibes. You've made it. You are the blanket. You are the heat source. You are the lasagna. Congratulations, you have unlocked the achievement. Survived a night without a blanket, without a heater, only with human breath and despair. The livestock roommates hack. When your cow is literally your space heater. You think winter is brutal now, try surviving it without central heating, electric blankets, or even socks that match. I mean, you open TikTok in January and people are crying because their oat milk lattes got cold on the walk home. Cute. Meanwhile, back in the Middle Ages, peasants like me were out here playing survival mode on nightmare difficulty, trying not to freeze to death in houses that had the insulation quality of a damp cardboard box taped together with pure denial. Forget emotional support animals. Medieval peasants had something better. We had physical survival animals. Our cows weren't just for milk and moos, they were walking, steaming, farting space heaters. I'm not kidding. These four-legged furnace machines were our ride-or-die winter buddies, the OG heated blankets except with hooves and attitude. So picture this, it's January. The wind outside sounds like a banshee with asthma. Your nose is already halfway to becoming a popsicle. The fire in the hearth is more symbolic than functional, and your breath fogs the air inside your own house. What do? Easy. You open that janky wooden door and say the sacred words. Come on in, Bessie. Yes, we brought the animals inside. All of them.
Cows, goats, pigs, chickens, the whole squad. It was like Noah's Ark, but more chaotic and slightly smellier. The living room became a barn, and honestly, the vibe was surprisingly cozy. The cow would lean against the wall like it owned the place, chewing cud with the confidence of someone who didn't pay rent but knew no one was going to kick them out. The goats would hop around like caffeine-fueled toddlers. Chickens perched in the rafters, throwing judgmental side-eyes from above like feathery landlords. Pigs snorted near the hearth, hogging the warmth like sweaty little kings. And me, I was somewhere in the corner, sandwiched between my brother, a goat named Henrietta, and a family pig with chronic flatulence. Was it weird? Absolutely. Was it warmer than any relationship I've had since? The smells were, legendary. Think Oda Farm with top notes of hay manure and something vaguely fermented, but at some point, your brain just gives up trying to be offended. You develop a weird sort of affection for it. It's like your nose builds a trauma bond with the aroma and decides, fine, this is who we are now. The trick was simple math. Humans produce a bit of heat. One cow, that's like plugging in a 1,000-watt medieval heater that also poops in the corner. It didn't matter that my blanket was basically a woven lie. With all the combined body heat, family livestock, and the occasional rodent roommate, the temperature inside our one-room home would go from I can see my own breath to I'm sweating and the pig is sticking to me. And it wasn't just about warmth, there was emotional stability in having your cow sleep beside you. Sure, it drooled and occasionally sneezed hay into your face, but in the middle of the night when the cold crept in and the fire had died down to an awkward ember, you could reach out and feel that big, breathing, fart-powered furnace of a cow and think, yeah, we're gonna make it. That cow was my comfort animal, my heating pad, and my emergency backup friend. People now have apps that simulate a heartbeat to help them sleep. We had Bessie's real heartbeat, thudding like a drum behind us, reminding us we weren't alone in this hell called medieval winter. Now let's talk logistics. Bringing a full barn into your living space isn't exactly elegant. Space was limited, so we stacked ourselves like human lasagna. Parents, kids, animals, one thick, sweaty cuddle pile. No such thing as personal space. You rolled over and it was 50-50 whether you'd spoon a sibling or a goat. You got used to waking up with a chicken standing on your face,
like it owned the place. Once I woke up nose to nose with a cow. She blinked. I blinked. And we both agreed to pretend it never happened. Feeding the animals indoors was a tactical move. Keep them inside, keep them fed, and they keep you alive. It's like paying rent in hay instead of money. Plus, keeping them in meant fewer predators and fewer thefts. Because yes, stealing livestock was a thing. Imagine waking up and your heater/best friend is gone because some guy down the lane got cold and desperate. Brutal. But with animals inside, life had a weird rhythm. The nights were filled with random snorts, moos, and chicken drama. You'd think silence would be comforting, but no silence meant something was wrong. It meant something might be dead. Noise was life. Noise meant warmth. And warmth meant survival. And don't even get me started on fire banking. That's when you bury embers under ash before bed so your fire doesn't completely die overnight. It's like putting your campfire on sleep mode. But even that wasn't foolproof. If you messed it up, you'd wake up colder than a TikToker's apology video. That's when the cow came in clutch. Her warmth was always reliable. No need to poke embers, just scoot closer to her beefy warmth and thank the gods for livestock biology. The funny part, we didn't think it was strange. This wasn't farm-core aesthetic, this was life. This was survival. You didn't question the fact that your best source of heat occasionally stepped on your foot or chewed on your sock. You just accepted it. You adapted. You laughed. You cried. You named your goat Fluffy and pretended the chickens weren't judging you for having frostbite on your pinky toe. To this day, I think about those nights. Not with nostalgia exactly, but with a sort of horrified fondness. I survived medieval winter cuddling a cow, tripping over goats, and arguing with my brother about who had the warmest part of the blanket. And you know what, I'd take that over a cold, lonely castle any day. So next time you're cold and you're cranking up the thermostat while sipping your overpriced hot chocolate, just remember I shared a mattress with a moist pig and lived to tell the tale. Congratulations, you have just unlocked the achievement cuddled with a cow to survive winter. Literally the peak of medieval survival. Vibe, fermented, funky, and family-sized. Would I recommend it? Only if you're ready to enter beast mode, literally, ready for the next hack. Because trust me, medieval survival was a whole lifestyle and we were just getting warmed up. Fire banking, the ancient art of coddling embers like a newborn. Okay, so you've made it through the medieval bedtime ritual. You've eaten your cabbage soup that tastes like sadness. You've become a human burrito wrapped in your one communal blanket with your family stacked on top of you like a lasagna of questionable hygiene. And now it's time for the final boss of medieval sleep, keeping the fire alive till morning. Because let's be real, there's no central heating, there's no thermostat, there's no electric blanket you can cry into at 3 a.m. There's just you, the wind, the dark, and your one true medieval bestie, the fire. And if that fire dies while you're snoring, you might literally wake up dead. That's where fire banking comes in. Now imagine this, it's 11 p.m. and your entire household is winding down. Someone farts, a baby sneezes, a chicken screams in the corner. Normal stuff, but you're on a mission. You crouch near the hearth, eyes squinting, mouth tight, because this is your nightly showdown with physics. You take a deep breath, medieval survival breath of course, and you begin the sacred ritual of fire banking. This isn't just saving the fire, this is a strategic, emotional, almost spiritual performance. First, you push the glowing embers into a tight little pile in the middle of the hearth. Not too tight or they'll suffocate, not too loose or they'll burn out. You want them to snuggle gently. Then you grab your secret weapon ash. Yep, literal ash. You carefully scoop the cold grey powder and bury the embers like you're tucking in a baby made of lava. That ash blanket, it's pure magic. It slows down the burning just enough to keep the embers alive till morning without turning into full flames and wasting fuel. You stand up. You stare at your work like a chef who just finished plating a Michelin star meal made of soot. If you've done this right, you can sleep like royalty, the peasant version, of course. Because when you wake up, all you need to do is poke the mound, throw on some kindling, and boom, you've got breakfast fire. But if you mess this up, if your ash to ember ratio is off by even a little bit, congratulations, you've unlocked the congratulations, it's freezing achievement. You now get to spend the next 2 hours frantically blowing on dead coal while your breath forms icicles on your nose and your grandma is yelling at you in the background. Why didn't you bank the fire properly, huh? What did we teach you about ash layering, you little frost goblin? Look, fire banking wasn't just a cute rustic skill. It was peak survival strategy. It was the medieval version of remembering to charge your phone overnight, except instead of losing screen time, you lost fingers. It was passed down like a family heirloom. Your dad showed you how to bank fire before he even told you where babies came from. You learned how to gently mound ash before you learned to read. Because in this world, knowing how to control fire meant you were one step ahead of the cold, the dark, and the Grim Reaper doing his seasonal rounds. And it wasn't just about comfort. Fire meant you could cook, boil water, sterilize tools, and keep animals, and let's be honest, demons away. It was literally your security system, your stove, your heater, and your light source all rolled into one fragile pile of half-dead embers.
That's why the hearth was the heart of the house, not just poetically, like literally. Everything happened around it. You ate there, you slept there, you gave birth there, you probably died there too. So letting the fire go out overnight, that wasn't just a mistake, that was a betrayal. It was like forgetting your password to life itself. Now, let's talk technique. You're probably imagining some rustic little fireplace with a cozy brick frame and copper tools. Nope. Think more like a black hole in the middle of the floor that constantly tries to choke you with smoke. Your eyes burn. Your clothes stink. There's soot in your soup, but still you treat that fire with the care of a new parent, because one wrong move and poof, nothing but cold ash and regret. Pro tip, ash has to be bone dry. If you use damp ash from a rainy day, you just created a fire suffocation blanket. Congrats, you've made medieval cryogenic storage.
Also, did I mention that fire banking had vibes? Because it totally did. This was your moment of quiet power. Everyone else was snoring in a pile. You were tending sacred flames like a monk of warmth. You were whispering ancient math equations to the universe in the form of ember clusters and ash geometry. You were the night watcher, the guardian of glow, the last defense against freezing your ass off. And in the morning, when someone shuffles over and sees the fire still warm, boom, instant street cred. Who banked the fire last night? I did. Respect. Of course, sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes you'd wake up to find the fire completely dead, and no amount of poking or swearing could bring it back. Then came the panic. You'd have to run to the neighbor's house, barefoot, half naked, through a frost-covered field, and beg for a coal. This was called a fire loan, and it was medieval code for, I'm stupid and cold, please help. If your neighbors liked you, they'd hand over a burning stick like a gift from the gods. If they didn't, you were stuck, rubbing flint and steel like a caveman on caffeine, praying for a spark, while your family considered eating the furniture. And yes, sometimes the fire would go rogue. You'd misjudge the ash layer and wake up to a full-on blaze licking the walls. Oops. Suddenly, your cozy firebank was a medieval house fire starter kit. But hey, at least you weren't cold, right? So the next time you're feeling dramatic about your heater breaking or your power going out for 5 minutes, just remember your medieval alter ego crouched in the smoky dark, whispering sweet nothings to a pile of ash, praying to the warmth gods for another few hours of survivable sleep. Firebanking wasn't a hack, it was a lifestyle, a passion, a nightly gamble between comfort and frostbite. And honestly, it was kind of beautiful in a gritty, sweaty, soot-covered, burn your eyelashes off kind of way. The heated stone and hay box, the original winter tech. You think you're tough because your apartment heater broke last winter and you had to sleep in a hoodie. Cute. Try surviving a 14th century winter night with wind howling through every wooden crack like a medieval ghost concert. No windows, no insulation, just you, your entire extended family, a few chickens, and whatever prayers you mumbled through chattering teeth. I mean, peak survival vibe. At this point, you're not trying to sleep, you're trying to not become a frozen meat sculpture. So here's the thing, by now we peasants had accepted that the medieval gods had abandoned central heating duties. Our huts, more like enthusiastic wind tunnels, the walls leaked air like a broken vape, the door creaked all night like a haunted horror set, and the roof honestly just decorative. My family had to get creative or die stylishly cold. And thus we unlocked our favorite winter tech, the heated stone and the legendary hay box. Forget your smart blankets and USB-powered gloves. This was the OG home heating hack. Let me set the scene. You're 10 years old, the youngest in the house, and life has already made you the designated guinea pig for all mildly dangerous but potentially warm experiments. Congratulations, you've just been selected to perform the sacred ritual of stone roasting. You grab the flattest, smoothest rock from outside, bonus points if it's already warm from the cow poop. Then with all the gravitas of a wizard casting a fire spell, you chuck it into the fireplace. Now you wait. As it glows red like Satan's marshmallow, the adults start yelling, "Not too hot, or it'll burn through the bed again." We don't want a repeat of last winter's flaming straw incident. Eventually, when the rock is hot but not nuclear, you yank it out with a pair of rags and whisper a quick prayer to Saint Warm Butt. You wrap it like a medieval burrito and rush it over to the bed before it cools down, which it will in exactly 7.3 seconds. Because this house has the insulation level of a dead tree, you jam the wrapped rock into the foot of the mattress. Technically, it's a hay mattress, basically dry grass mashed into a sack, seasoned with whatever crumbs, dirt, fleas, and childhood trauma it's absorbed over the years. You jump in after the rock and hope it hasn't unwrapped itself, because nothing says goodnight like second-degree burns on your shins. But if you get it right, oh baby, it's heavenly. That heat radiates like a medieval sauna beam. It doesn't just warm your feet, it trickles into your soul. You suddenly believe in miracles again. Is this what luxury feels like? You feel rich, like royalty, like maybe tonight, just maybe, you won't freeze your nose off in your sleep. Then came the real game changer, the hay box. This little beauty was peak innovation, a humble wooden box stuffed with thick hay. At first, it was just a food hack. You cooked your stew, boiled your barley water, whatever, then you dumped the pot in the hay box to keep it hot for hours. Boom. Medieval slow cooker. You could go out and milk a goat, come back, and your soup was still steaming like a jealous ex. But then someone I don't know, who probably a sleep-deprived genius mum, looked at the steaming pot and said, "Wait, if it keeps stew warm, could it keep rocks warm too?" And just like that, history changed. So now the ritual evolved. You heated the rock, wrapped it like usual, then tucked it inside the hay box. That kept the stone toasty for even longer, like a preheated oven from hell. When bedtime came, you didn't just throw the rock in the bed. No, you put the whole damn hay box under the covers. Boom! You just built a portable heater out of literal trash. We'd snuggle around it like moths to a flame. You'd press your hands against the box, feel the warmth seeping through and whisper to your siblings, "She's still warm, lads." It wasn't just a heat source, it was hope, it was comfort, it was everything. Of course, this tech had its quirks. Sometimes the hay caught fire, sometimes the stone cracked and exploded, sometimes a rat made a home in the box and you found it mid-cuddle. But all of that was considered part of the authentic medieval sleep package. If you woke up warm and mostly not on fire, it was a win. And let's be honest, you needed every win you could get, because everything else was stacked against you. Your house was a single room that smelled like damp, fur cabbage farts and old wooden planks. Your bed was a communal mush pile where you, your siblings, your parents, and a rotating guest list of farm animals formed what I like to call the human lasagna layers of flesh hay and fabric smushed together in the desperate pursuit of warmth. We were the stuffing in a peasant burrito. No one had personal space. If you rolled over, you risked starting a sibling war. The heated stone and haybox setup was like the Wi-Fi router of comfort. It brought everyone together in one spot, glowing in the dark, radiating medieval love and sometimes smoke. It made bedtime something to look forward to. Sure, we still had fleas. Sure, the dog peed in the corner again. Sure, Grandma was whispering to ghosts in the corner, but at least our feet weren't ice blocks anymore. And that's the wild part. These low-key, low-tech hacks were surprisingly effective, like actually brilliant. In a world where we had zero electricity and infinite drafts, we somehow built a personal heating system using dirt rocks, hay, and blind optimism. This was DIY survival at its finest. Honestly, I feel like if peasants today got access to TikTok, we'd have gone viral. How to turn your bed into a medieval sauna with $1 rock and $0 hashtag peasant life hack. So next time your power goes out and you're panicking because your electric blanket stopped working, just remember somewhere deep in your ancestral memory, a peasant version of you is laughing. They survived the ice age of poverty with a rock, a box, and a dream. You got this. Just find a stone, heat it up, throw it in some hay, and go to bed like a true medieval legend. Anyway, good night. Don't let the hay lice bite. The survival breathing technique. How to not cough up your soul. You think you've had bad sleepovers, like maybe your cousin stole your blanket or snored like a lawnmower. Cute. Welcome to the peak experience known as the medieval family bed, where comfort dies and the vibe is human lasagna. No Netflix, no heaters, no personal space. Just layers of body heat, armpit steam, and dreams that smell faintly of goat. Imagine walking into a wooden shack with zero insulation, one fireplace, doing its best impression of a dying candle, and a dozen humans stacked like sardines for warmth. That's not a house, that's a pre-modern crock pot. So here I am, the eldest sibling, which automatically makes me the bottom layer of the peasant parfait. My little brothers drool on me, my aunt snores in G major next to my ear, and my dad, bless him, thinks farting is a form of bonding. Our dog is curled up on our feet, our chicken is asleep in the corner, yes, in the house, and my toes have started to question whether they still exist. I can't move, because if I do, I'll create an air pocket and doom everyone to frostbite. This isn't sleep. This is an ancient, uncomfortable group project where everyone contributes body heat and no one gets credit. But the worst part, I kind of miss it when I don't have it. This is the paradox of medieval winter. You survive together or you don't survive at all. And that's why even when my uncle gets night terrors and starts yelling Latin phrases in his sleep, I still let him spoon me. Because body heat is currency and the exchange rate is brutal. It's like snuggling with an anxiety blanket made of sweaty peasants. We all smell like smoked soup and something vaguely sour, but in the dead of night it becomes our signature scent. Ode to medieval misery. Now, before you judge us, let me tell you this. Our survival game was tight. We knew how to trap heat like professionals. Ever heard of fire banking? Yeah, it's basically the ancient version of charging your power bank before a blackout. You pile ashes over the fire so it burns low and slow through the night, keeping just enough warmth to stop your toes from falling off. And if you were fancy, you might have a brick bed warmer or a heated stone. But us, we had Chad. Chad was the goat. Literally, he was a goat. We'd let him inside on especially brutal nights. He didn't pay rent, but he was fluffy and emotionally available. That's enough. Our family motto became, if it breathes and it's warm, it's welcome, even if it poops on the floor. And look, I get it, this sounds primitive, but ask yourself, what would you rather have, central heating and existential loneliness, or 10 snoring relatives whose combined body heat could cook a potato? Be honest. Because we weren't just surviving, we were innovating. Our medieval sleep hacks would make any modern influencer jealous. Fire banking, peak eco-living, human sandwiching, sustainable insulation, cloak face masks. Please, we invented that centuries before your pandemic. But the real secret, the hardcore life or death trick that separates the casual villagers from the true frost-slaying legends is something we call survival breathing. And I don't mean deep meditative breathwork with a soundtrack of rain.
No, I mean the kind of breathing you have to think about, because if you do it wrong, your lungs will throw a tantrum. See, in the dead of winter, air isn't just cold, it's weaponized. You inhale the wrong way and it feels like your soul gets sucker punched. That's why we developed a whole system, shallow, slow, exclusively nasal breathing. We literally had to train ourselves to inhale like stealthy little frost ninjas. The nose is like nature's furnace. It warms, filters, and moisturizes air before it hits the lungs. Open your mouth in the middle of the night, instant regret. It's like drinking an iced latte with your trachea. You'll wake up coughing like a Victorian ghost and stay that way for days, hacking out vibes of death. Some villagers, myself included, got creative. We'd pull cloaks or linen over our faces while sleeping, creating what I now call a DIY respiratory sauna. Sure, you'd wake up with your face wet and sticky like a used napkin, but your lungs toasty.
No pneumonia, no phlegm symphonies. It's the kind of sleep strategy that makes you feel like a gritty survivalist, even if you're cuddling a goat named Chad. And yeah, sometimes it felt gross. Sometimes the cloth would freeze overnight and you'd peel it off your face like a medieval fruit roll-up. But in a world where the common cold could literally graduate into the Black Death, it was a small price to pay. Plus, let's be real, modern people wrapped their faces in $80 silk sleep masks to block out LED lights. We did it to block out death. So who's the real genius here? And let's talk mindset. When you're practicing survival breathing, you're basically doing sleep yoga with a death wish. Every inhale is a calculated decision. every exhale is a moment of gratitude that you haven't turned into an ice sculpture. It's mindfulness, but with stakes. And yes, we made mistakes. There was always that one cousin who insisted on breathing loudly through his mouth, and we all just stared at him like, "So you've chosen death?" But over time it became instinctual. We became one with the cold. We embraced the suffering. And somehow, weirdly, it bonded us. There's nothing like synchronized nasal breathing under a shared burlap sack to make you feel connected, like deeply connected. Sure, we didn't have electric blankets or flannel pajamas, but we had rhythm. We had teamwork. We had cold-induced humility. And honestly, we had resilience that would put any modern biohacker to shame. So next time you're tucked in your memory foam mattress with your lavender diffuser and you're complaining about the AC being a bit too chilly, just remember your medieval ancestors were over here doing Wim Hof breathing with a wet rag on their face and a goat on their foot, and they still got up at dawn to shovel pig crap. So yeah. Survival breathing wasn't glamorous, but it was effective. It was the ancient peasant version of life coaching. Breathe shallow, breathe smart, or cough up your soul. Should have been on a motivational poster. I can still hear my grandmother yelling it at me in the middle of the night, like it was bedtime ASMR. You haven't lived until you've whispered nasal prayers into a frozen room with 7 relatives and a suspiciously silent chicken. And if you think I'm exaggerating, ask any medieval villager who survived past 30. Breathing right was a flex. It was a power move. And now, centuries later, it's your turn. So go ahead, take a slow, shallow breath through your nose, pull your blanket up over your face, and thank your ancestors for passing down the world's least sexy but most effective life hack: how to sleep without freezing or accidentally coughing up your soul. Because history might be boring, but staying alive, that never goes out of style. The full stomach strategy, eating like a friendly brick. Look, I'm not saying I was a genius, but when your entire house is colder than your ex's heart and your blanket is made of recycled goat, you learn a few things about survival. Chief among them, eat like you're preparing for a food coma in hell. Because in the Middle Ages, calories weren't just sustenance, they were central heating. Forget scented candles or fleece pajamas. This was the era where heating systems came with a face and name and were occasionally named Bartholomew the Goat. But for us peasants, aka unpaid extras in the feudal sitcom, our best shot at not freezing to death was to become walking furnaces powered by root vegetables. Now, before you start romanticizing medieval stews, let me clarify something. Our food wasn't cozy. It was aggressive. Dinner wasn't about flavor. It was about mass. If it didn't feel like you were swallowing a wet burlap sack, it wasn't done right. My go-to was a slop of turnips, parsnips, and mystery broth. Read whatever the pig sneezed into, dumped over stale rye bread, thick enough to bludgeon a tax collector. We didn't call it comfort food, we called it not dying. And every spoonful added another defensive layer to your internal insulation. A belly full of stew was our version of a heated mattress. You could practically feel your internal organs high-fiving each other for the warmth. Let me paint you a picture. It's late, the fire has gone out. My brother has stolen the last usable sock and is now wearing it as a hat. The wind outside is howling like a choir of unpaid ghosts. And me, I'm lying there bloated, sweating out onions, trying to find a position that doesn't feel like birthing a turnip. But guess what? I'm warm. Because digestion equals heat. That's science, baby. Medieval science, sure, which also thought sneezing was caused by demons. But still we knew our guts were our greatest heaters. And don't think you could skip this step. Parents back then didn't ask if you were hungry. They told you to eat and you obeyed, because if you didn't, you'd be the kid who woke up shivering so hard you could churn butter with your teeth. That's how little Thomas learned to shut up and eat his turnips. No one cared if he cried. Tears are just seasoning. And fat. Oh man, fat was gold. Not metaphorically, literally. People would trade for it, hoard it, whisper to it like it was a precious lover. Because fat took ages to digest, meaning it'd warm you slowly through the night. Kind of like sleeping with a hot water bottle, except it was your liver and it wanted revenge. We even had rituals. Nightly stew wasn't a meal, it was a ceremony. You stirred the pot, muttered a quick curse at the tax system, and dumped in whatever hadn't molded into a sentient life form. If it bubbled, great. If it hissed, even better, meant the evil had been cooked out. And rye bread. Let me tell you something about medieval rye bread. That thing could survive the apocalypse. You didn't chew it so much as negotiate with it, but it worked. Bread, that dent sticks with you, literally. I once found a chunk in my coat pocket 5 months later, still good, still sharp enough to cut cheese. Eating wasn't just about the food, it was the performance art of survival. We'd sit there each with a wooden spoon and our hopes scooping up sludge like it was liquid gold. My uncle once said, if your dinner doesn't feel like it's fighting back, you didn't cook it long enough. That man lived to 93, or possibly 38. Hard to tell in peasant years. Sometimes if we were feeling fancy, aka someone died and we got their leftovers, we'd add lard. Don't gag, lard was luxury. Lard was Michelin star peasant cuisine. You haven't lived until you've tasted boiled cabbage glistening in pork fat. It's like being hugged by a pig from the inside. And yes, sometimes it backfired. Ever try to sleep while digesting half your body weight in starchy glue? You don't dream, you hallucinate. I once saw St. Peter in a turnip. He told me to lay off the parsnips. But you know what, I woke up warm. You'd think this would make us fat. Spoiler, it didn't. Between the constant field labor, plague dodging, and running from emotionally unstable geese, those calories got incinerated fast. Winter was survival cardio. You sweat, stew, and scream into the snow. What's wild is how tactical this all was. We didn't have science books, but we had desperation. People figured out trial by frostbite that if you eat heavy, you sleep warmer. It became cultural wisdom, passed down like family heirlooms but greasier. Eat before you freeze was the vibe, and no, it didn't matter what it tasted like. Texture optional. Presentation, you mean in a bowl. Nutrition, LOL. Fiber, accidentally. You just needed it to be hot, heavy, and mildly threatening to your intestines. Some nights I'd lie there full to the brim, whispering to my stomach like it was a coal engine. Come on, big guy, burn slow, keep the toes alive. And it worked, most nights at least, unless I farted too hard and blew the blanket off. That was tragic. There was also social pressure. You didn't want to be the idiot who didn't eat enough and woke up blue. That's how rumors started. Did you hear Alfie didn't finish his stew? Froze, solid. They used him as a sled. Whether true or not, peer pressure kept us plump. And hey, sometimes the food was actually good. On rare occasions, someone's wife could cook and you'd get something almost tasty. A stew with garlic, maybe a rogue piece of salted meat that didn't taste like a medieval boot. Those were the good nights. You slept like royalty. Bloated, sweaty royalty. But mostly, you accepted the grind. The food didn't love you, but it kept you alive. And that was enough. You didn't go to bed dreaming of feasts. You went to bed hoping you wouldn't wake up with frostbite in places you didn't know could freeze. So yeah, call me dramatic, but I owe my life to that friendly brick in my stomach, that dense, unchewable, barely swallowable mass of medieval dinner. It gave me heat, it gave me dreams. It probably shaved 5 years off my life expectancy, but in peasant math, that's still a win. And honestly, I'd do it again. Because when the snow is falling, your fire's dead, and your brother's farting under the one blanket you share, there's no sweeter sound than the gentle gurgle of a stew digesting in your belly, whispering, "You made it." For now. The village. Winter watch. When a neighbor's fire was everyone's business, all right, huddle up. Imagine it's 2 a.m. and your entire house is an icebox. The blanket's useless, your toes feel like frozen carrots, and your candle just went out. You're lying there thinking, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm haunting whoever made that drafty window. Welcome to medieval winter peasant edition, where dying of cold was just another Tuesday and staying warm was a full-time group project. But hey, at least you weren't alone in the suffering. In fact, the cold was so unreasonably aggressive that it turned your whole village into a nosy little cult of survival. Now picture me, a tired peasant who hasn't bathed since harvest season, wrapped in 3 layers of scratchy wool and potato sacks, peeking out my thatched window like a budget Sherlock Holmes. Why? Because in my village, if your chimney didn't puff smoke, that was a red flag. Not because you ran out of firewood, no, that would be too simple, but because no smoke meant no fire. And no fire meant you were either frozen solid dead or on the fast track to becoming both. So yeah, I cared if your house looked dead, and so did everyone else. That's where the winter watch came in. No, not the Game of Thrones kind with swords and dragons and emotional trauma. This was more like the medieval version of a neighborhood Facebook group, except instead of complaining about barking dogs or posting grainy photos of raccoons, we watched each other's chimneys like hawks. That thin wisp of smoke curling up into the grey sky, that was your life insurance. And your neighbors were the underpaid, over-invested agents. The watchers weren't official, obviously. No one got badges or titles, but there were always a few folks, usually the too old to plow types or kids too young to be useful, who had the time and the tea. They'd notice who was coughing weird, who hadn't been seen since yesterday, or whose door had been frozen shut since Sunday. And if something seemed off, boom. Instant village gossip emergency. Did you see Thomas's hut? No smoke since dawn. Do you think he finally kicked the bucket, or is his fire just being dramatic again? Sometimes the solution was simple. Someone would bring over a burning coal in a little clay pot, like a flaming care package. Other times you'd just invite them over to crowd into your smoky, overheated hovel, where the air smelled like boiled cabbage and goat feet. Was it comfortable? Absolutely not, but comfort was for rich people. Survival was for us. And here's the plot twist: even the guy you hated, the one who stole your chicken last spring or borrowed your rake and never returned, it got saved. Why? Because karma in a medieval winter was immediate. Today it's Thomas freezing, tomorrow it might be you. So yes, we kept each other alive, not just out of kindness, but out of strategic self-preservation. Plus, if he died, someone had to deal with the body. And let's be honest, no one wanted that job in January. This whole setup turned the village into something strangely beautiful. It was chaotic, loud, itchy, and always a little damp. But we looked out for one another, we had to. There was no central heating, no emergency hotline, and certainly no therapist to talk about how the cold made you hallucinate your dead uncle asking for stew. You had your neighbors, your fire, and the sheer will to not freeze mid-poop. And we got creative too. People placed heated rocks in straw beds, slept like tangled cats under piles of hay, and even used pigs as personal heaters. Yes, pigs. You think your electric blanket is cozy? Try spooning a 300-pound oinking radiator named Bertha. Don't knock it till you've tried it. I mean, Bertha had warm ears and smelled like family. But back to the watch. You know what made it work? Paranoia. The good kind. The kind that kept you checking your chimney every hour and praying someone out there cared enough to notice if it stopped smoking. It's funny today we call it community spirit, but back then it was more like, don't die alone and rot in silence. Poetic, right? Even the village drunk got watched, especially the village drunk, because let's be real, his fire was always at risk of going out or setting the entire village on fire. He was both a liability and a group project. But again, you saved him, because no one wanted a frozen drunk ghost haunting their cows. So yes, in the medieval winter, the village wasn't just a cluster of huts. It was a hive of shared trauma, communal farting under blankets and unspoken agreements, like I'll save you from freezing if you promise not to eat all the dried beans again. We were family not by blood but by frostbite. And honestly, looking back now from the comfort of my 2025 memory foam mattress, an overpriced candle, I kind of miss it. Not the frostbite or the rats or the communal pig cuddles, but the connection. The knowing that someone somewhere was watching your chimney, not to judge, but to help. That someone would knock on your door with a coal, not because they liked you, but because that's what survival looked like. So, next time you complain about your heating bill, just remember at least you're not depending on Bertha the pig and old Agnes peering through your window at dawn, unless you are. In which case, welcome to the club. And with that warm thought, let's move on. Because if staying warm was about teamwork, then staying fed was a whole different tactical operation. Let me introduce you to the ancient art of eating like a brick. Yes, you heard me, a friendly brick. Buckle up. So you forgot to feed the fire. Congratulations, you played yourself. Okay, confession time. I, your humble, frostbitten narrator, may have once thought I could beat winter by sheer optimism and extra hay in my socks. Turns out frost doesn't care about your attitude or foot fashion. It's like the IRS of medieval life, cold, relentless, and always collecting. You think you've had a rough December because your Wi-Fi cut out during a snowstorm. Try waking up at 3 a.m. in a mud hut with a dead fire, a frozen chicken in your bed. It crawled in for warmth and your own pee turning to slush before it hits the chamber pot. That's not quaint rustic vibes. That's survival mode, baby. In our village, letting the fire go out wasn't just a whoopsie. It was the equivalent of deleting your lungs. Fire wasn't ambiance, it was life. It cooked your soup, dried your boots, scared off death temporarily, and kept your grandma from becoming a medieval popsicle. So when the fire died, yeah, we noticed. At first it starts small. No smoke from your roof chimney, no steam on your windows. Your doors shut a little too tightly. The old winter watchers, those retired gossips with nothing better to do, start whispering, "Have you seen the Thompsons lately?" "No, but I think I heard one of them coughing yesterday." Or maybe it was a goat. Then someone knocks. Always someone nosy but well-meaning. They step into your freezing, fireless hut like it's a crime scene. They gasp, the baby's purple, the dog is spooning the cat, and you're under 7 layers of goat wool, praying for a miracle or a meteor. At this point, you've either frozen your left butt cheek off or developed a new respect for warmth as a concept. And here's the kicker, nobody really blamed you. Because deep down we all knew we were one bad log away from being next. Firekeeping was a full-time job. You didn't just toss on some logs and vibe, you babysat that thing like it was your newborn. Midnight wake-ups, check. Panic when it dimmed, check. Emotional attachment to glowing coals, double check.
That fire was your toxic relationship, draining, unpredictable, but if you left it alone, it would destroy you. I remember one neighbour, Elric, good lad, not the sharpest hoe in the shed. Thought he could outsmart the cold by sleeping through it. Just layered on cloaks, piled on straw and mumbled, "It's all mental." We found him in March, frozen solid like a breadstick. He died with a smug little smile as if he'd won some internal argument with winter. I guess he did. He's permanently chill now. The thing is, winter didn't need to rush. It was patient. It would sneak into your bones, your walls, your bed. It'd nibble off your fingers, then your sanity, one frostbitten toe at a time. No big horror movie moment, just slowly, inevitably colder, until one morning you stopped waking up. And don't get me started on frostbite. You think stubbing your toe hurts, try watching it turn black, then fall off.
First it's numb, then tingly, then it's like your foot is being roasted by invisible gremlins. Eventually your body just gives up on it. Sorry Dave, we're cutting toe number 4 to reduce costs. You become the living version of a clearance bin. Some survivors wore their missing parts like badges of honor. Old Mags down the lane lost both ears and a few fingers. Still showed up to church every Sunday, whistling through the holes. She used to say winter took parts of me, but not my sass. We respected that. And let's be real, no one looked good in winter. Everyone smelled like smoked goat. Teeth went unbrushed. Hair froze into terrifying shapes. There was no winter glow, just near-death chic. Forget skincare routines, we exfoliated by accident when our faces cracked in the wind. Still you tried, you fought. Every villager had their trick. My uncle swore by sleeping with a warm potato under each armpit. One guy knitted sweaters for his firewood. Another built a fire shrine and offered daily prayers to Saint Kindle the Igniter. Spoiler, it did not help. And yet we didn't give up. There was something stupidly beautiful about that. We knew the odds. We knew death was just outside the door in a fabulous ice cloak. But we kept lighting fires, wrapping our kids in rags, checking on neighbors and laughing at fart jokes, even when our noses were frostbitten halfway off. Because the alternative was giving in. And that wasn't our style. Even when someone didn't make it, we mourned them like heroes. He fought the frost with a ladle and determination. She stared down the blizzard and told it to suck it. They lasted longer than anyone expected. We thought they were goners by New Year's. And sometimes the worst part wasn't the dying, it was the not knowing. Come spring, the snow would melt and the truth came out. Whole huts uncovered like sad time capsules. Families curled together forever, stuck in one last group hug. A dog still curled by the hearth, a meal half cooked, never finished. It was heartbreak frozen in time. No grand funerals, no dramatic music, just silence and a slow collective nod from the village. We'd gather what we could, build a pyre and promise to light bigger fires next year. Snot lice and other winter delicacies. Let me ask you something straight up. Would you rather freeze your butt off or walk around smelling like a rotten goat's armpit mixed with dead rat stew? Yeah, welcome to my winter. Look, ever since the snow started falling, hygiene's become what we peasants like to call optional, as in no one's doing it unless they want to commit suicide via pneumonia. Water, it's ice. Soap, luxury. Baths, that's just rich people propaganda. If you strip off even one layer of clothing, your nipples might fall off like stale breadcrumbs. So, no, we don't bathe, not in December, not in January, sometimes not even by Easter, if it's still cold.
And sure, it sounds nasty, but when it's either smell like boiled feet or literally die, you pick the aroma of survival. It's not a stink, it's a shield. My shirt hasn't been washed since harvest. It now stands up on its own and has started forming opinions. And oh boy, the lice are thriving. Head lice, beard lice, crotch lice, probably eyebrow lice too, if that's even a thing. You'd think they'd die off in the cold. Right, wrong. They burrow into the warmth of your scalp like they're at a cozy spa weekend, sipping hot blood like it's mulled wine. We all take turns scratching each other's heads at dinner. My wife says it's intimate. I say it's group survival. Pubic lice are a whole other species of evil. You ever feel a tickle down there and realize it's a colony of tiny parasites doing the cha-cha on your family jewels? You haven't lived until you've tried to warm your hands while simultaneously scratching your crotch under 5 layers of wool.
You look like you're either cold, horny, or both, which honestly describes medieval life pretty well. Winter also means rivers of snot. Permanent. Dripping. I haven't had a clear nostril since St. Nicholas's Day. But here's the thing, when your mucus freezes halfway down your face, it forms these stiff icicles that dangle like facial jewelry. Kids think it's hilarious, they lick it. I once saw a child go full tongue out like it was a popsicle. Medieval parenting baby. Builds immunity and character, or tetanus. People judge us now, but hey, when tissues cost a month's wages and also don't exist, you learn to use your sleeve, or someone else's. Washing clothes in winter, don't make me laugh, that's how peasants die. You dunk your shirt in freezing water, hang it up, and congratulations, it freezes solid into a medieval murder weapon. I once tried to wring out my socks and they snapped in half like dried wood, so what do we do instead? We just wear it, again and again.
And again, until the fabric becomes one with your skin. Medieval fashion tip, if your tunic crunches, you're doing it right. Smell? Oh yeah, we smell. But so does everyone else, so your nose just gives up eventually. Like a soldier with PTSD, it retreats inside itself, praying for spring. If anyone new comes to the village, the scent hits them like a punch from a sweaty blacksmith. Tourists dead in 5 minutes. Even wolves avoid us now, that's right, our stench is predator repellent. Who needs armor when your armpits smell like fermented onions? Now here's where things get spicy keeping warm. Some folks smear themselves in animal fat. Yep. Straight up pig lard, goose grease, bear butter if you fancy. It locks in body heat like a greasy human candle. The downside. Every dog in the village follows you around like you're a walking snack. I got chased by a pack of mutts last week. One of them licked my thigh and looked into my eyes like we had something. I'm still not okay.
But hey, you want soft skin in sub-zero temperatures? Rub yourself in bacon. Hair becomes a frozen mop. You can't comb it, it breaks off. And if you try to wash it, it'll ice up and snap like a breadstick. That's why most of us keep it braided, tied up or covered in hats that smell like hay. and horse breath. I found a beetle in my beard last week. I named him Clive. He's still in there somewhere paying rent in dandruff. Every now and then someone gets ideas. They say, what if I just bathe real quick and we all gather round like it's public execution? Don't do it, Martha, we yell. Think of your lungs because it's a trap. You undress, catch a chill, and bam, now you're coughing blood and planning your funeral. If someone actually does survive a midwinter bath, we carry them around like a hero. The cleanest man in the village last year got frostbite on both butt cheeks. He's still single, but let's talk romance. You'd think nobody wants to snuggle when everyone smells like a compost heap. But winter is cuffing season even for medieval peasants. We huddle together under one itchy wool blanket wrapped so tight you can't tell whose lice are whose. It's strangely intimate. You whisper sweet nothings like, your breath only smells a little bit like turnips today, or your fungus rash looks smaller in this lighting. Love finds a way, especially when it's on. And your only other heat source is the family pig. You want the truth. Winter hygiene was never about cleanliness, it was about strategic filth. You stink enough to scare away disease predators and unwanted social interaction. Your lice, built-in insulation, your crusty shirt, body armor, your frozen nose drip fashion statement, every smell, every itch, every oozing sore, it's part of the package. So yeah, you could bathe. Or you could stay warm, alive, and surrounded by a community of equally stinky legends who've made peace with being human biohazards. Are you bold enough to bare your bum to winter's wrath for the fleeting dream of cleanliness? Or will you embrace the glorious, greasy, lice-ridden chaos of medieval peasant life? Me, I'll be here, wrapped in 3 dead sheep's worth of wool, sniffing like wet bread. And proud of it. Now pass me that booger popsicle. Is it a nap or your funeral? That's the question every time I close my eyes in winter. Welcome to my bedtime thoughts, peasant edition, where sleep is just warm up for dying, and your mattress is basically a coffin made of hay lice and regrets. Let me explain. It's not that I'm paranoid, it's just that in my village, people die in their sleep. A lot. Last winter, my neighbor old Edric went to bed after eating boiled turnip soup, snored like a beast for 2 days and never woke up. We thought he was just hibernating as usual. He always took long naps. Man worked hard, you know. But on day 3, the smell said otherwise. We buried him behind the goat shed and took his boots. I still wear them now. Sorry, Edric. Your sacrifice was warm. You think I'm joking? I wish I was. In our village, winter sleep is Russian roulette, except the gun is made of pneumonia, frozen toes, and a general lack of will to live. Back in summer, sleep is a treat. You lie down on a half-squishy straw bed, maybe scratch a few fleas off your thigh, fart freely, and dream about barley. But in winter sleep is trauma with a blanket. It's so cold your breath freezes on your own moustache. The goats sleep in the house, the roof leaks icicles, and the wind whispers Latin curses through the cracks. And yet you have to sleep, otherwise you go mad. But if you do sleep too deeply, your body might forget to wake up. That's how weak our peasant flesh is. You ever slept so hard you woke up dead? Yeah, we have. That's why we developed precautions. In the dead of night, pun intended, there's a rule in our village. You don't just assume someone's sleeping. You poke them. You check. You watch for chest movement. If you're friends, you lightly slap them. If you're close, you kick them in the shin. If they groan, great, they're still alive. If they don't move, start digging. Some folks take turns staying awake just to nudge each other every hour. We call it the death watch. Not even kidding, it's like being in a group chat where everyone's last message is still breathing. One winter we lost 3 people because they got too comfortable. That's the curse of warmth, you let your guard down. Agnes, the baker's sister, slept under a fur coat, a sheep and her husband. Next morning, only the sheep woke up. Tragic. Romantic, sure, but tragic. So now we sleep light. One eye open but clenched soul half hovering outside the body. You think modern people invented sleep anxiety? Try being medieval. We were the original insomniacs. Only instead of scrolling TikTok at 2 a.m., we whispered to the rats under our bed, asking them to keep us company. And if the cold doesn't get you, the hallucinations might. I once woke up and thought my left foot was a demon. Turned out it was just frostbitten and purple. Still scared me though, nearly baptized it. Some families take turns doing midnight corpse checks. It's like a reverse bedtime story. You open the door, see if your kid's still alive, and if not, you tell the others, well, we've got soup meat, okay? That was a joke. Sort of. Sometimes we even test each other on purpose, like last week. We all thought old Merrick had gone to glory. He wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. We started digging the hole. Midway through, he farted, loud, powerful, resurrection level. We cheered, genuinely clapped. That's how you know we're starved for good news. But the absolute worst case was the man we actually buried alive because he was just really, really asleep. Brother Alfred, pious man, snored like a bishop on wine. He dozed off during evening prayer. We assumed he'd frozen. He was pale, stiff, and smelled like incense. 2 days later, he crawled out of his grave angry. We had to rebaptize the entire graveyard. That's when the village rule was made official. Poke before you mourn. Another winter ritual, the midnight slap. It's exactly what it sounds like. You and your sleeping partner agree. If either of you goes too quiet, the other slaps. Not hard, just enough to trigger a grunt. Romance. Right, imagine spooning your loved one and randomly getting smacked to prove you're still alive. We call it peasant love language. Then there's the fighting method, because warmth is life and movement means circulation. So some folks literally wrestle before bed. Push-ups, slaps, pillow fights, well, hay fights. We don't have pillows, just to keep the heart going. I once saw 2 drunk uncles slap each other for 20 minutes before passing out side by side. They woke up with bruises, but no frostbite. That's a win. You city folks with your electric blankets and central heating will never understand. You sleep for pleasure. We sleep out of necessity, fear, and spite. Another cold fact, we don't really dream in winter. Or if we do, it's always the same thing: warm bread, a sunbeam, a bath that doesn't give you hypothermia. One time I dreamed I was sweating. I woke up and cried from joy. Turned out the roof was leaking. By the way, don't even think about crying in winter. Your tears freeze mid-cheek, and you look like you're growing salt crystals out of your eyes. Beautiful, poetic, deadly. People ask, why not just huddle together for warmth? Oh, we do. We're peasants, not idiots. We spoon like sardines. Entire families pile into one bed. You haven't truly bonded with your cousin until you've slept on his foot for 3 nights straight. The rich, of course, don't suffer like this. They've got fireplaces, feather beds, heated stones. They even have sleep chambers with tapestries and chamber pots that don't freeze to your butt. Meanwhile, my bedroom is just a corner of the main hut beside a goat under a cloak that smells like 3 winters ago. But we peasants have developed tricks. We stuff straw in our clothes, we sleep with rocks we've heated by the fire, and yes, sometimes burn ourselves, but warmth is worth it. Some folks smear goose fat on their skin. Slippery, yes. Toasty, absolutely. The worst part is the morning, because if you do wake up, congratulations, you now have to check if everyone else did too. Morning roll call isn't about breakfast, it's about counting corpses. Once I woke up to silence. Not even the pigs were grunting. I panicked, thought I was the last man alive, ran through the snow barefoot screaming. Turns out everyone else just overslept. But now they call me the end timer, so yeah. Next time you complain your mattress isn't soft enough or your blanket's not fluffy, remember me, remember us, the medieval peasants who slept with one foot in the grave and the other covered in goose grease. Because in winter, sleep isn't rest. Sleep is a trial, a test, a simulation of death. And if you pass, congrats, you get to do it again tomorrow night. Unless, of course, you don't. Sweet dreams, sexy. Winter fashion 1. Shirt 3 generations. Have you ever worn your great-grandma's underwear on your face while it was still warm? No. Then congratulations, you weren't born a medieval peasant in winter. I sadly was. It all started with a cough. Not mine, Grandpa's. The one that sounds like he's spitting out a demon wrapped in phlegm. That was the annual alarm clock for winter. Once you hear it echo from the straw pile, you know it's time for the shirt. Not just any shirt. The shirt. Capital T, capital S. This ancient, stinky, stitched-up, saint-forsaken piece of fabric has lived through 3 famines, 1 witch burning, and at least 5 people's full life cycles. I don't even know what color it used to be. Now it's sort of dirt, blood rust, and scab beige. If fashion had a crime scene, this would be the evidence. But when the frost hits, you stop asking questions. You just close your eyes and wear the ancestral armor like a cursed heirloom. Now people in modern times have wardrobes. Cute. We had 1 item, and it didn't even belong to us. I was 6th in line for it this winter, right after baby, cousin goat boy, and uncle with the rash. When I got it, it was still damp. From what no one knows, or we don't want to know. All I knew was it was my turn, and it was still warm. In peasant tradition, this shirt wasn't just clothing, it was multifunctional. Winter fashion was basically whatever's not frozen solid. You sleep in it, work in it, cry in it, and if you're lucky, die in it. When someone dies, you strip the body before it cools down. That's how you inherit warmth. In our world, that counts as love. The shirt was also a towel, a napkin, a scarf, a baby sling, a tourniquet, and once tragically a soup filter. That's right. My aunt boiled bones through it, and we drank it. That explains the crunch. And don't get me started on the smell. It wasn't bad, it was medieval. A mixture of fermented sweat, holy relic dust, and mystery mold. You know when you leave a wet towel in a bag for too long? Now imagine that towel had a family. That's the shirt. Once I tried to wash it, the water turned black and then attacked me. I think I summoned a textile demon, but fashion isn't just smell, it's also style. And in winter, style means layers. Because one shirt isn't enough when your house has no insulation, no windows, and the wind uses your chimney as a slip and slide. So we layered up with What? Everything. I once wore 7 layers, grandma's wedding dress, my brother's old sack, 2 sheep stomachs, a burlap curtain, one of Dad's lice-ridden tunics, and a hat that used to be a chicken. We called it the onion look. The goal wasn't to be warm, it was to not be naked when the frostbite hits, or when a neighbor walks in without knocking, which happened often because doors are a luxury. Nighttime was the real fashion show. We slept fully dressed, obviously, but that's not enough. We also wrapped ourselves in straw dead cats and the leftover skin from butchering day. One winter I even used a boiled cabbage leaf as a sock. Don't ask about the smell. Actually, it smelled better than my foot, so technically it was an upgrade. Now let's talk undergarments. Ha, just kidding, we didn't have those. Underwear was a myth, like soap or dental care. If you were fancy, maybe you had a loincloth, aka a rag with a string. Most of us just let the wind go where it wanted. That's why we all walked funny. And when your clothes froze to your skin, you didn't take them off, you peeled them slowly, like human lasagna. That's where you learn about true pain. When frozen linen fuses with your thigh hair and rips it out like medieval waxing. I still have emotional scars. And bald spots. Fashion wasn't just physical. It was also emotional warfare. You think catwalks are competitive? Try living in a house with 12 cousins and 1 shirt. Every morning was a Hunger Games audition. Who gets it first? Who's brave enough to take it off someone else who can sniff it without passing out? We played a game called Crispiest Wins. Whoever's shirt made the loudest crunch when you bent your arms got the first scoop of turnip mush. One winter I was champion. I couldn't move my elbow, but I had honor. Of course, clothes were patched. Constantly, I've seen shirts held together by teeth marks and hope. Threads, we used hair. Buttons, dried beans. Zippers weren't invented yet, so we just tied everything with knots or frozen spit. One time my sleeve got stuck to the goat. I wore him to church. And the worst part, you couldn't even complain. If you said I'm cold, your mum would say, that means you're still alive. And if you said I'm itchy, she'd say, then scratch with a rock. We didn't have lotion, we had dirt, which we rubbed on for insulation. Sometimes we'd borrow the clothes from the dead, but only if you were fast, because death was a fashion opportunity. I once saw Aunt Marjorie rip a sock off a corpse before the priest even finished the prayer. She wore it proudly to market, with the toes still inside. You might think, why not make new clothes? Oh, sweet summer child, with your fabric stores and Amazon Prime, we had no fabric. No thread. Spinning wool took months. Dyeing, it cost your soul. And tailoring, if it fit, you were lucky. If it didn't, you wore it anyway and blamed God. Our wardrobe lived on one wooden hook. When clothes weren't on you, they hung above the fire, steaming like a haunted roast. The smell of drying peasant wear could knock out a priest. One time we hung Dad's pants too close to the flames. They lit up. He wore them anyway. Called it holy fashion. Laundry, that's a fantasy. Washing clothes in winter meant breaking through ice, soaking your fingers till they turned blue, then scrubbing with ashes and swearing. It didn't clean the clothes, it just made them wetter and angrier. I once found a fish in my shirt after washing it. Still alive, I named him Crunchy. And let's not forget the headwear. Scarves, hoods, turbans made from rags. I once used a rabbit carcass as earmuffs. It worked until it thawed. Now I have trust issues. Looking back, winter fashion was a war zone, a test of survival creativity and tolerance for mystery stains. But it also bonded us. Literally, one time I got frozen to my sister. We had to hop to church like a cursed sack race. People clapped. So next time you're cold and you reach for your 8th hoodie or your heated blanket, just remember I wore my great-grandma's underpants on my face and called it fashion. you have no excuse. Winter wasn't pretty, it wasn't cozy, it was stinky stiff and stitched with survival. But damn it, we made it work. We were fierce, we were frozen, we were fashion. Winter gossip, who froze? First, okay, be honest, if your neighbor froze to death under a pile of snow, would you cry? Or would you just whisper, "Knew it"? Look, in medieval winter gossip wasn't just for fun, it was survival content. Welcome to my Peasant TED Talk, where the trending topic is who's next to turn into a human icicle. Forget royal weddings and noble scandals. Around here, winter gossip is what keeps the blood flowing figuratively, because literally we're all half frozen. So grab your one shared sock, scoot closer to the rat-warmed hearth, and let's talk fatalities. There's always that one guy in the village, let's call him Coffee Carl. Every winter he insists cold never bothered me anyway, then proceeds to sleep next to the door with no blanket. Guess who's the first name on the death pool board? That's right, we don't bet money because we don't have any. We bet turnip slices. Kids bet pebbles, grandma bets her dentures a chicken bone. But it's serious business. Every December we host the annual frozen forecast. The village elder, who's mostly blind and fully senile, predicts who'll drop dead first based on their cough frequency, walking wobbliness, and number of visible toes. Winter is brutal but somehow hilarious in the most messed up way. One year, old man Gregory decided to start an argument with his wife outdoors during a blizzard. She shouted, he shouted louder, and the next morning both of them were still standing in the yard, frozen mid-argument. The icicle on his beard looked like it was wagging its finger. Art. The priest said it was a tragedy. The rest of us said it was karma. That's the thing, in winter pettiness becomes fatal. You give someone the cold shoulder too long and boom, they're literally cold and shoulderless. Oh, and then there's the rooftop squad. You know them. The brave, dumb few who climb up to shovel snow off their thatched roof because safety first. Yeah, well, safety second. First comes physics. Wet snow plus rotten straw equals roof collapse. Every time someone goes up there, we gather like it's gladiator games. Will they fall? Will the roof fall? Will it be both? Spoiler alert, it's usually both. And when they do crash through the ceiling, mid-dinner, we don't scream, we slow clap. Survival is hard, but sarcasm is free. Now let's talk children. You'd think they'd be scared of winter. Nope. They thrive on the chaos. These tiny devils form little gambling rings behind the barn. They bet on who survives till spring. One kid even made a chart with drawings, "Mummy, 50% chance of frostbite." Daddy already smells like he's halfway to the other side. It sounds dark, but come on, what else are we supposed to do? Read books. We can't read. If someone disappears for more than 24 hours in winter, the first assumption is not they're visiting family. It's they fell in a snow pit or got eaten by wolves. Either way, gossip explodes. I saw him talking to a fox. She was muttering to herself about a snow god. He owed turnips to the tavern owner and mysteriously vanished, just saying, "We don't need CSI, we have Karen from the bakery who hears everything through her frosted windows and will absolutely weaponize it." And don't even get me started on the mysterious scream heard at midnight. It's always someone's goat, or someone's ghost, or both. Every weird noise becomes a rumor. Someone farts too loud in their sleep, demonic possession. Someone snores witch's curse, someone coughs. They're dying. Give me their mittens. No privacy, no pity, just pure peasant paranoia. But the juiciest gossip of all, the survivors, you know, those few smug villagers who somehow never get sick, never fall, and always look like they just took a warm bath. We hate them. There's rumors they're secretly royalty or sorcerers or bathing in goat blood. One lady swears she saw the baker wearing wool from a sheep that died of old age luxury. He denies it, but his eyebrows are too fluffy for a commoner. Sometimes we spice things up with a little murder theory. What if Edgar didn't freeze? What if his wife put him in the snow on purpose? Is it true? Who cares? It's entertaining. The church disapproves, obviously. But they also light their candles with imported oil, so who's judging whom? Meanwhile, we're burning shoe soles for warmth. I once roasted a dead rat for heat, not food heat, just to watch it sizzle like a mini fire log. By March, we're all half mad from cold and boredom, so every survival feels like a scandalous victory. If you didn't lose a toe that's flex-worthy, if your family made it through without a single roof collapse, you're basically nobility. We start spring with the Who Made It roll call. You walk around town nodding at survivors like, you still here, impressive. It's not love, it's mutual disbelief. And let me be honest, sometimes we don't mourn the frozen ones. Sometimes we just say, well, he did try to ride a pig down an icy hill, or she thought sleeping next to the chimney was smart until the chimney fell. There's always context, and the context is always winter makes people dumb, or real, or both. So yeah, next time you're sipping hot chocolate and complaining about your cold feet, just remember, my ancestors were betting on which cousin would turn blue first and calling it entertainment. And me, I'm just here trying to survive long enough to gossip about your frozen butt too. Now tell me, who do you think will be the first to freeze next winter? Because if it's not you, it's probably that guy who keeps saying it's just a little snow. We'll see about that.
How not to die in the Middle Ages, but you probably will welcome to your miserable life. Peasant. You're not special, just one more mud-covered soul in a village that smells like feet and fear. You were born unlucky, and now you're trying not to die in the deadliest time in history. Your water is poison. Your doctor thinks sneezing is demonic. Your bread might attack you, thanks ergot. And God, he's busy smiting someone richer. This is your horror survival guide, a medieval how-to on dodging death by plague, childbirth, rats, nobles, or boredom. Spoiler, you'll probably still die, but at least now you'll die knowing why. Welcome to hell, we call it home. What's the first thing you remember? For me, it was a sharp slap from a drunk midwife, a priest who called me the wrong name during baptism, and someone stuffing mud in my mouth because we couldn't afford bread. Congrats, you've just been born into the Middle Ages.
You didn't ask for this life, but here you are, breathing in manure, drinking water that's 10% fish, 90% dysentery, and dodging death like it's a daily sport. No tutorial, no health insurance, just vibes. Your house is made of sticks, straw, and prayer. And the roof leaks not just water, but rats. Your crib, a pile of rags, your pillow, your mother's elbow. Toys, you've got options, a rat tail, a smooth stone, or that one stick everyone fights over. You sleep next to a goat, not because you like it, but because it's warm and grandma already took the dog. Your family has 6 people, but only one bed. Who gets the middle spot, the one with the fewest fleas? That's usually not you. Now let's talk food. You wake up hungry and go to bed even hungrier. Breakfast, thin porridge with maybe a bug in it. Lunch, stale bread if you're lucky. Dinner, whatever the goat didn't eat, your teeth fall out before you can even pronounce tooth. And don't even think about sweets. Sugar is for the king. You're chewing on tree bark and pretending it's cake. But hey, at least you're alive, right? Half the kids you grew up with died before they turned 5. Some from fever, some from accidents, some just because the wind blew wrong. You're one of the lucky ones. Yay. Hygiene. Cute idea, never heard of her. Baths happen once a year, maybe. Water is for drinking unless it's from the river, which also doubles as the town toilet. You clean your butt with leaves if you're fancy. Otherwise, it's just hope and a good breeze. Toothbrush. Your finger. Soap. What's that? If you want to smell better, you roll in mint leaves and pray. And the church, oh the church, it tells you everything is a sin, thinking, eating too much, sleeping too long, liking your neighbor's wife or not liking your neighbor's wife. You just can't win. Every problem you have is either a punishment from God or because you didn't give enough onions to the priest. Speaking of religion, let's not forget the devil. He's everywhere. Stub your toe devil, crop failed devil, goat gave birth to a 2-headed kid. That's definitely the devil. And don't ask questions. Questions get you labeled as a heretic. Heretics get burned. You learn fast. School LOL. You can't read. You can't write. Your idea of education is learning which mushrooms kill you and which don't. Your dad teaches you how to dig holes. Your mum teaches you how to not die in childbirth. That's your curriculum. And oh, love romance. Let me laugh. Your marriage is arranged before your voice even drops. You marry a girl from the next village because your dad owes her dad a chicken. Love grows slowly, usually after 3 kids and shared trauma. Or never, but hey, you've got chores. And by chores, I mean your full-time job from age 6. You feed animals, carry water, chop wood, chase chickens, and try not to cry because crying is a waste of salt. If you're a boy, you'll work the field until your spine gives out. If you're a girl, you'll give birth until your uterus does. Fun times. Meanwhile, your diet is 90% bread and 10% accidents. You eat bread when it's fresh, hard, moldy, or full of worms. It doesn't matter. You eat it anyway. Sometimes it has fungus that makes you hallucinate. That's the closest thing you'll get to a vacation. And sickness. Oh, buddy. There's always sickness. Everyone coughs. Everyone limps. You don't know what a healthy person looks like. The town healer is also the town blacksmith and part-time bartender. He'll bleed you with a rusty knife and then offer you beer. It works 2% of the time. The other 98% you just die. Your only form of entertainment is gossip. Did the neighbor's cow fart during mass scandal? Did old Maud give birth to twins that don't look like her husband? Extra scandal. You live for this drama because everything else is pain. Time passes. Slowly. Seasons change, but your suffering doesn't. In winter you freeze. In summer you sweat and itch. In spring you plant. In fall you pray the harvest isn't trash. Everything revolves around crops. If the harvest fails, you die. If it succeeds, you still might die, but a little later. So why do we stay? Because we don't know better. This is life. This is normal. You dream of heaven, but settle for not dying before 30. And if you make it past 40, people start calling you a wizard. But despite it all, there's laughter. Bad teeth, yes, but good jokes. You share bread stories, lice and warmth. You sing even if your voice sounds like a dying goose. You dance badly, but proudly. You keep going. Because that's what peasants do, suffer, survive. and somehow still smile through the mud. So welcome home, dirt child, this hellhole is yours. Family, fleas and fatalities. You ever wake up to the sound of your brother coughing blood into your ear, roll over and accidentally kiss a flea that just hopped from your cousin's eyebrow to your mouth? Welcome to my life. I'm 11, I think. Birthdays aren't really a thing in our village. You're either newborn, small enough to be useful, or probably about to die. Dad just turned 32, which means he's a walking miracle and also a total boomer by medieval standards. He farts dust and tells stories like, back in my day we only had one kind of plague. Mum's a legend though. 14 kids. 14. And not even for Instagram clout, just good old-fashioned reproductive panic. Out of those 5 of us are still alive. 2 got sent off to the monastery because they could read, and the rest either died of fever, bad bread, or looked at the bishop funny. When someone dies around here, no one's shocked. Aunt Gertrude died last week. She's still at the dinner table because Grandpa says it's bad luck to move a body during Lent. So we eat soup while she decomposes next to the salt jar. I tried to tell Mum she's starting to smell, but she just said, "That's the Lord's scent, boy. Show some respect."
Our house is technically made of wood straw and desperation. There's one room, that's it, one. You do everything in it, sleep, eat, poop, pray, argue about who farted, and pretend you didn't hear the rats under the floorboards planning their next home invasion. I sleep in a bed with 6 other siblings, one of whom literally whistles when he breathes, because his lungs are probably moldy. Every night's a surprise. Will I wake up with a new rash, missing hair, or covered in someone else's diarrhea? It's like medieval roulette, but the prize is always trauma. And the fleas, oh sweet Jesus. We don't even fight them anymore. They've unionized, they have shifts. Morning fleas, evening fleas, holiday fleas. Sometimes they form conga lines on my thighs. One of them has a name. I call him Jeffrey. He bit me 17 times, and I think we're in a toxic relationship. Family meals are a full contact sport. There's no table manners. You eat fast or you eat your own fingers.
Bread is hard, stew is suspicious, and meat is a myth. If you see something chunky in your soup, just assume it's a bone and don't ask questions. Last week I found a toe. We don't own pigs, Dad said. It's probably just a sign from St. Elmo. What sign? That we're next. Hygiene. What's that? We bathe once a year in a river filled with fish pee and grandma ashes. And that's if the river isn't frozen, poisoned, or being used as a battlefield. Our version of skincare is not having visible leprosy. I once asked if I could wash my hands before eating. Grandpa slapped me with a dead squirrel and told me to stop being French. Emotionally, we don't really talk about feelings. Someone dies. We grunt. Someone gives birth. We grunt louder. Someone loses a toe to frostbite. At least it wasn't the whole foot, says Dad, passing the same wooden spoon we've used for generations. It's not just that life is hard. It's that life is like being stuck in a group chat where God keeps sending plagues and you're not allowed to leave. If it's not typhoid, it's smallpox. If it's not smallpox, it's the Inquisition asking weird questions about why you screamed during that thunderstorm. I swear the church has more spies than fleas in my pants. And the priests, oh, they love death. Can't get enough of it. Every week someone croaks and they ring that bell like it's a festival. God's will, they say, as they take the last piece of bread from your grieving mother. Meanwhile, my cousin tried to become a priest, but he got rejected for not being pale and hungry enough. So now he just yells at frogs and says he's talking to saints. I'm not even joking. The frogs nod back. Anyway, the point is, if you think your family is dysfunctional, try medieval peasant life. Our family bonding time involves plucking lice from each other's hair and guessing which relative will die next. Spoiler, it's usually the cheerful one, but you get used to it. Death isn't a surprise, it's more like background music, like, "Oh, Uncle Bernard collapsed in the pig trough again," classic Bernard. Now I know what you're thinking, how the hell do you survive this simple? You lower your standards until staying alive. One more day feels like winning the lottery. If your soup doesn't scream back at you, good day. If no one bleeds from their eyes, excellent. If your house doesn't catch fire, luxury. But even on the rare days where no one dies, something always goes wrong. One time we had a quiet morning, no screaming, no coughing, no visible corpses. I thought we'd entered paradise. Turns out everyone had just passed out from bad grain. We all hallucinated St. Francis, dancing with a goat. Dad cried, I danced. No, the goat bit me, so yeah, life's a mess, but it's our mess. And somehow, despite the plague, the fleas, the dead aunt on the bench, and the soup made of regrets, we laugh, or at least we wheeze in unison. Because if you don't laugh, you cry, and if you cry, someone will assume you've caught the weeping sickness and bury you before dinner. So keep it together, peasant. You're not dead yet. And with that, let's move on to the next level of misery marriage livestock and why your baby might be possessed by demons. Buckle up. Part 3's about to get personal. Hygiene is a myth, so is soap. Do you smell that? No, congratulations, you're officially one of us. If you think medieval people walked around smelling like lavender and holy water, let me stop you right there, influencer. In this era, if you bathe more than once in your life, people start thinking you're suspicious. Or worse, French. I haven't touched water since the day I got married, and even then it was more of a splash fight with a donkey. My shampoo, ashes from the cooking fire, conditioner, cold rain and prayer, skin care, pig fat if I'm lucky, goat grease if I'm feeling fancy. We don't do hygiene here, we do smoke until the lice leave. Actually, scratch that, lice are lucky. People say if you've got lice, it means your blood is hot, which means you're alive. Sexy, right? My sister once named her lice. A whole colony lived in her hair braid, and we called them the choir because they moved when she sang. The local village beauty, she's 19, has all 3 of her front teeth and only smells mildly like fermented cabbage. Every guy wants her. Every guy also smells like death warmed over. So you know it's fair. The scent of the village is something between wet sheep and regret. But no one minds. We've all built up a tolerance. Even the rats leave politely now. If someone shows up with shiny hair, we assume they're either royalty or possessed. Once a nobleman came by wearing perfume. My uncle stabbed him because he thought the man was a demon. Bathing is considered dangerous. The church says water can sneak into your soul and tempt the devil. Personally, I think it's just because no one wants to be naked in February. It's cold and everything shrinks. Plus, you don't have a private bathroom, just a wooden bucket near the pigsty, and the pigs have better manners. There's a reason we wear 17 layers of wool to trap the stink inside like a slow-cooked fart. Summer is a group sauna. Everyone sweats. No one blinks. You learn to identify people not by face, but by funk. Ah yes, that must be Cousin Wilbur. He smells like fish guts and cheese mold. Some rich folks own soap, but don't get excited. It's made from boiled animal fat and ashes. It burns, it doesn't clean so much as it threatens the bacteria into leaving. The idea of scrubbing your body for fun is so wild it might get you accused of sorcery. Our version of spa day is sitting by the fire and pulling fleas out of our armpits, and we like it that way. There's a freedom in filth. No one judges your body because no one can see your body under all the grime. Fashion is 3 tunics layered over your insecurities, and trust me, no one's expecting a glow up, we're just hoping your skin doesn't fall off. Acne a blessing, covers up the plague spots. And don't even ask about deodorant. The only roll-on we know is when a pig escapes and crushes your leg. It's not like you can Google 10 tips to stay fresh. The only influencer in town is Brother Thomas, and his content is just shouting Latin from a tower. Nobody flosses. If you've still got molars by age 25, you're basically a dental god. My grandma kept her teeth in a jar. They weren't hers, but hey, teeth are teeth. So no, we don't believe in hygiene. We believe in resilience. You can't smell shame if everyone stinks equally. And if you think this is bad, wait until we talk about medicine. Spoiler, it involves frogs, fire, and a terrifying woman named Agnes with 1 eye and 0 qualifications. But that's for the next part. For now, just embrace the musk. You're one of us now, and you reek beautifully. Death by work, then death by bread. Why does my bread move on its own? That's not a riddle. That's my actual lunch, asking for help. Welcome to where your full-time job is dying and your part-time job is also dying, but with snacks. See, I didn't choose the medieval peasant life. It chose me specifically. It chose to crush me with dirt mold and emotional damage. Every day starts with the same vibe. Wake up if you're lucky. Pray you don't step on a rat and drag your half-starved body to the fields. You work 16 hours straight under a sun that doesn't even give you vitamin D because your skin is permanently stained mud brown from years of grime. My farming equipment: a stick, my tractor, my spine. You think leg day hurts? Try pushing a wooden plow through stone-heavy soil while your last 5 remaining teeth grind moldy barley into sadness. The village says, farming is sacred labor. I say farming is what happens when Satan runs a CrossFit cult. Now let's talk about your reward after a day of this back-breaking peasant Pilates bread. Glorious, majestic bread. Just kidding, it's black, solid, dense, made of rye dirt and possibly your ancestors. Sometimes it jiggles, sometimes it crawls. And if you eat it, congratulations, you just unlocked level 2 of medieval horror ergot poisoning. That's right, our bread comes laced with free hallucinogens, courtesy of a lovely mold that grows on rye. One bite and you're either talking to God or chewing your own fingers off thinking they're sausages. I once saw old man Greg dance naked in a puddle because he thought he was a goose. Spoiler, he wasn't. He died. So yes, you toil in fields just to bring home demonic sourdough that either starves you slowly or launches your soul to the spirit realm. Don't worry though, you don't eat alone. Your bread is shared with lice, fleas, worms, and sometimes the guy next door who's too poor to afford his own moldy loaf. Sharing is caring, right? Let's also not forget the seasonal bonus round famine. Too much rain, crops die. Not enough rain, crops die. Random locust invasion, crops die. You also die. The only consistent thing in your life is that death shows up to dinner uninvited and brings ergot as a side dish. And just when you think, at least it can't get worse, surprise. Taxes. The Lord still demands his share, meaning half your crop, your dignity, and probably your goat. So even if your bread doesn't kill you, the stress will. But hey, at least you're skinny. That's hot, right? Welcome to Wellness Culture 1350 edition fasting, hallucinating and working yourself into an early grave. Tune in next time when we discuss Plague Priest and the Pits. So, how many times can you survive the apocalypse before it gets boring? It's plague season again, which means it's just another Tuesday in the Middle Ages. You wake up, stretch, and hear the familiar sound of someone 2 huts over, coughing their lungs into a bucket. Classic. You've lived through so many plagues that you don't even flinch anymore. Your first, Black Death, traumatizing. Your fourth, meh. At this point, you and the plague are like toxic exes, keeps coming back and somehow you're still alive. You try to stay positive. After all, you only have some of the symptoms: mild fever, 1 swollen lymph node, and a vague sense of existential dread. That's basically medieval normal. What's not normal is Father Gregory, the local priest, who's decided that the real cause of the plague is you making eye contact with that widow at the well last week. He tells the village that your sinful gaze summoned divine punishment. You don't even argue. You're too busy hiding your sexy ankles so no one else dies. Everyone's either dying, digging, or praying. Some manage to do all 3 simultaneously. The air smells like rotting cabbage, wet hay, and regret. The guy next door dies in his soup. The village baker turns green. Your cousin starts coughing up black goo and you're like, damn, again. He gets tossed into the plague pit. 2 hours later, still twitching. No time to check pulses these days. If you're quiet enough, you can hear faint screams under the dirt. But hey, at least they're muffled. Fun fact, your new side hustle is grave digging. You dig a little during lunch, a little before bed. You even pre-dug one for yourself, just in case things go sideways during the night. It's the Middle Ages version of being prepared. Self-care, but make it goth. The worst part isn't even the dying, it's the priests. Every time someone sneezes, they pop up like a cursed pop-up ad shouting Latin and blaming women, Jews, the stars, bad soup, or new this week, left-handed children. Then they prescribe the holy cure, confess everything, whip yourself for good measure, and definitely don't see a doctor. If you do, the doctor's wearing a beak mask, smells like death, and probably has 0 medical training. But he does carry a stick to poke you from a safe distance, so that's something. You try to stay clean, but your bath water is now illegal. The church said bathing is a sin again, something about opening your pores to Satan. You stopped arguing with them after they banned garlic because it looks suspicious. So now everyone's unwashed, infected, angry, and still horny. Basically a plague-fueled rave minus the music. Every morning you play Alive or Dead with your family. Shake grandma. If she groans, you keep feeding her. If she's cold, you drag her out back. One time she was just napping. Oops. But hey, better safe than haunted. And through it all, you're still standing, still breathing, though maybe wheezing a little, still dodging death like it's your full-time job. The bodies keep piling up. The priest keeps blaming everything but himself. And you keep digging, hiding your ankles, and wondering whether you should maybe start sleeping in your pre-dug grave, just to save time. Because if you want to survive the Middle Ages, you better learn to live like you're already half dead. Rituals, ghosts, and weird medieval kinks. Have you ever cuddled with your dead spouse just one more time because you weren't ready to say goodbye? No. Then congratulations, you're not medieval. Because here in our blessed, mud-stained, rat-infested village, sleeping next to a corpse is not only normal, it's romantic. It's how we do closure. When my wife died last winter, God rest her frostbitten soul, The priest told me I had one final duty as a husband: tuck her in and sleep beside her for one last night. Technically, it's a farewell ritual, but it felt more like a haunted sleepover. Her skin was colder than the soup, and I swear I heard her mutter, "Take out the trash one last time." But I did it because that's how grief works here. You cry, you kiss her forehead, and you pretend rigor mortis is just a cute little cuddle cramp. Some folks even keep their dead loved ones around longer, wrap them in herbs, dress them up, and leave them in the bed like some holy mannequin. It's disturbing, but hey, it's either that or throw them into the frozen pit behind the church and hope the wolves don't dig them up again. That's the thing about medieval rituals. They all blur the line between love, fear, and what the actual hell are we doing? Take medicine, for example. You're feeling sick, headache, fever. Maybe you sneeze too loudly and someone thinks you've been cursed. No problem. Our local healers, aka the drunk widow who talks to chickens, will fix you right up. First bloodletting. We call it letting the evil spirits out, but it's basically stabbing you until you feel lightheaded enough to forget you were sick. And if you're not better, that's because we didn't let out enough blood. So we try again and again until you're healed or dead, whichever comes first. If you're lucky, we might skip the knives and use leeches instead. Slap a few slimy suckers on your belly and boom, instant detox. People say it cleanses the soul. Personally, I think it just gives the worms a free lunch, but that's not all medieval cures or a full-on tasting menu of horror. Got a cough? Drink some boiled mouse wine. Yes, actual mouse drowned in red wine. Got the shakes? Try eating a roasted toad dipped in honey. Stomachache? Ground up owl bones mixed with a drop of virgin's blood. Toothache? Don't worry, the blacksmith will fix that with a hammer. No anesthesia, no warning, just bam, tooth gone, jaw realigned, trauma unlocked. I once had a rash on my neck, and the village herbalist gave me a salve made of goat dung and ashes from a sinner's Bible. It worked. Or maybe the rash just gave up because it was ashamed to be part of this nonsense. But physical sickness is one thing, spiritual sickness. Now that's the real drama. Sometimes someone starts acting weird, talking backwards, laughing at church, eating dirt. Classic signs of possession. We don't ask what's wrong, we ask which demon moved in, and that's when exorcisms come in. We tie the poor soul to a chair, scream Latin at them, even though none of us know Latin, wave burning incense around, and occasionally slap them with a dried fish. Why the fish, I don't know. But Father Gregory swears by it. Last week, a girl in the next village coughed 3 times and fainted, so they exorcised her for 6 hours. Turns out she was just choking on bread, but now she's holy and betrothed to the local priest. So, win. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying demons aren't real. I've seen enough weird stuff to believe in something, like that time my neighbor's cow gave birth to a chicken. Or when I saw old man Hugo walking around 2 weeks after his funeral. Could have been a ghost, or just Hugo being stubborn about death. Speaking of ghosts, they're everywhere. You fart too loud near the graveyard and someone says, "You disturb the dead." You wake up with bruises. A spirit touched you. Your bread won't rise. Must be a jealous ghost messing with your yeast. Honestly, I think most ghosts are just nosy dead people who hate seeing us happy. But the weirdest part of all the things we do willingly, the rituals that aren't about healing or mourning but straight up vibes. Every spring we celebrate the fertility festival. Everyone wears leaves, dances naked around a goat, and throws mud at each other for good crops. Last year, someone got pregnant just by looking at the priest during the ceremony. We don't talk about it. We also have rituals for avoiding bad luck. Spit 3 times if you see a nun in your dreams. Bury your fingernail clippings under a tree or risk turning into a frog. Never sneeze more than twice on a Wednesday. The 3rd sneeze belongs to the devil. Are these rules ridiculous? Absolutely. Do we follow them religiously? You bet. Because in a world where everything is trying to kill you, plague, starvation, your own bathroom, you cling to whatever gives you the illusion of control, even if it means sleeping with a corpse, drinking blood, or letting a leech make out with your thigh. And honestly, sometimes it's kind of fun. There's something weirdly comforting about being part of a community where everyone is equally insane. We cry together, we chant nonsense together, we accidentally summon demons together. So yeah, maybe we're all cursed, maybe the ghosts are real, maybe that noise in the attic isn't rats, but the soul of my dead goat angry. I never said goodbye. But at least I'm not alone in this madness, and who knows, maybe next week I'll be the one strapped to a chair, babbling Latin and vomiting frogs while the village throws holy water at my face. Can't wait, ready for more. Because in the next part we're going deeper into the dungeons, the punishments, the executions, and the horrifying creativity of medieval justice, the spring thaw. Surprise, it's Grandma. You ever wake up one day, the birds are singing, sun's out, snow's melting, and boom, there's a human toe poking out of your cabbage patch. Yeah, that's medieval spring for you. See where I come from, peasant town population, depressed. Winter isn't just about freezing your ass off in one shirt passed down 3 generations. It's about burying folks when the ground is too hard to dig, so we just kinda store them like meat, under snow, behind the barn, sometimes in the barn if it's Auntie May and no one wants to talk about it. Fast forward to the first warm day, and guess what's coming back from the dead, not Jesus? It's Grandma. She's thawing, she's juicy, and she's now part of the spring landscape, like daffodils, but smellier. Spring is less rebirth and more corpse roulette. Kids run around in the field playing Guess Who Died. It's like hide and seek, but you find Uncle Berto's jawbone and scream instead of tag. Last week, my cousin tripped over something squishy. Thought it was a rotting pumpkin. Nope, it was Father Dunstan, still holding a rosary. I think he froze mid-prayer. You try not to scream because screaming wastes calories, and calories are life. But it's hard not to when you realize the person you cried over in December is now your backyard's newest lawn ornament. So now comes the fun part, corpse cleanup. It's a village-wide activity, like group therapy, but with more shovels. We take what's left of everyone, wrap them up again, and finally dig graves that aren't just shallow hopes and frozen regret. It's also gossip season. Didn't she bury her 3rd husband awfully fast? Look how well preserved he is. Do you think she kept him in the pantry? I swear funerals become fashion shows. Oh, you're still grieving. I saw you dancing last week with the candle maker's son. People die, sure, but petty never does. You'd think we'd be used to it, the smell. But no. You never really get used to the scent of semi-thawed people. It's like a wet dog that ate garlic and regret. The church tries to help by burning incense. Problem is, we only have 2 sticks left from last year. So instead, we all just stand around the bodies with dried herbs in our shirts like DIY air fresheners. Also, if you think the dogs behave, you are wrong. Rover found a femur and now guards it like it's his new chew toy. I don't know whose leg that was, but they probably want it back. The trick to surviving another year is simple: don't die. Not during winter anyway. If you go make it a summer thing, that way at least people can bury you properly instead of stuffing you in a snowbank like a forgotten turnip. You'd think we'd be grateful that spring means life returns. Birds chirp, flowers bloom. The blacksmith's wife stops threatening to eat the cat. But me, I mostly feel lucky I didn't end up being this year's horrifying surprise, despite everything we party. Why? Because if we didn't laugh at the fact that your neighbor's grandmother just reappeared next to your outhouse, we'd cry. And in medieval logic, crying means weakness, and weakness gets you eaten by wolves or the tax collector. So we light a fire, drink whatever survived in the mead barrel and dance around like it's not a miracle we even made it. And I say to myself every year, I'm alive again. For now, spring is here, the dead have spoken, and I've still got all my toes. Not everyone can say that. The Lantern of Elderglen, a medieval bedtime tale of healing and hope. Once upon a time, in the quiet green heart of the kingdom of Elderglen, nestled between the whispering woods and a silver stream, there stood a humble cottage made of moss-covered stone and timber, aged by rain and time. There, beneath a thatched roof and stars that watched like old friends, lived a healer named Malin, a quiet soul with hands as gentle as the morning dew and a voice as soft as the fog that curled through the trees at dawn. Malin was not born into power or wealth, nor did she wield sword or spell. Yet people from across the land journeyed to her cottage, seeking something more precious than gold, rest, comfort and peace. Some came with wounds that bled, others with hearts that ached, and many simply came to remember how to breathe. Each night, before the candle burned low and the hearth turned to embers, Malin would sit by the window with a cup of warm tea brewed from lavender, chamomile and rose hips. She would gaze at the moon and speak softly, not to any person in particular, but to the night itself, as if it were an old friend who always listened. Another day is done. She'd whisper, her voice barely louder than the creak of settling wood. And though your battles may not yet be over, you've made it through the ones that mattered today. That is enough. That is everything. Her words traveled on the wind like lullabies carried by leaves, reaching the ears of anyone who needed them. They traveled to towers where princesses cried in silence, to barracks where tired knights rested their bruised bodies, to lonely shepherds watching stars blink into the sky. They even found their way to you. Yes, you weary traveler of days long and hard, you who has fought unseen battles, who's carried invisible weight. Tonight, rest, for you are not alone. Malin's voice returns again like soft bells ringing in the dark. Breathe in slowly. The world can wait. Let go of the crown you wear in the daylight. Even if no one sees it, I know how heavy it is. You've done your best. You've done enough. There is something about the Middle Ages that makes the night feel deeper, more sacred. Perhaps it's the lack of noise, the hum of modern life replaced by the crackle of fire, the hoot of an owl, the distant howl of wolves. There's no screen to distract, no deadline to chase. Just the ancient rhythm of the earth humming beneath your bones, the bed you rest in now, imagine it. A thick mattress stuffed with feathers wrapped in linen and wool. The smell of herbs hangs in the air, sage, mint and thyme tucked under your pillow to guard your dreams. You are safe here. You are held. Above you, wooden beams frame the ceiling like the ribs of a cathedral. Outside, the moon keeps watch over the forest, and stars keep secrets no king can buy. And tonight, in this sacred silence, I will tell you a tale, one that may not be written in any book, but lives in the folds of the past like a whisper in an old monastery's halls. There was once a boy named Rowan, born to a farmer's hut and destined for little more than soil and rain. But Rowan carried a strange gift when he sang plants grew. His melodies stitched broken roots and coaxed blossoms from frostbitten fields. The villagers called him the green-blooded, a mix of awe and unease in their voices. Some thought him cursed, others blessed. But to Rowan it didn't matter. He sang to the plants because he loved them, and they in turn loved him back. One harsh winter, when famine gripped the land and snow refused to melt, Rowan set out on a journey. He had heard of a lantern, a relic from ancient times that burned with a light no darkness could consume. It was said to rest at the top of Mount Vale, guarded by no beast, but by the weight of giving up. For many had tried to reach it and failed, not from monsters or storms, but because their hearts gave out long before their legs did. Still Rowan walked, through snow that bit and wind that mocked, through forests where even trees seemed to whisper doubts. But every night, when he was ready to surrender, he remembered Malin's words, "You don't need to see the top to take the next step. You only need to believe that one step more is worth it." And so he took one step, then another, then another. He walked until his feet bled. He sang when his voice cracked, and at last, when the moon was a silver scar across the sky, he found it a simple lantern hanging from a branch on a dead tree. No grand altar, no ancient guardian, just a flicker of warm light in a sea of cold. He reached out, and the lantern did not burn his hand, but warmed it. It whispered not in words, but in memory, of the boy he was, of the reasons he kept going, of every soul who needed that light, even if they didn't know it yet. Rowan brought the lantern back, not to keep, but to share. He placed it in the heart of Elderglen, where Malin lived. And from that day forward, anyone who stood near it felt a little braver, a little less tired, a little more like themselves, not because the lantern changed them, but because it reminded them they had never been broken. And now, beloved dreamer, let the warmth of that lantern reach you. You've climbed your own mountain today. Maybe others didn't see it, maybe even you forgot how high you climbed. But I see you, I honor the steps you took. Let this moment be your lantern. Let sleep be your sanctuary. You are not late, you are not lost, you are becoming. Your scars are not shame, they are symbols of survival, proof that you were here, that you fought, and that you are still choosing to hope. Let go just for tonight. Let your shoulders fall. Let your heart beat slow. Breathe in the safety of this room. Breathe out the weight of the world. The Middle Ages were dark, yes, but they were also the age of hidden strength. People carved joy into their routine stories, by firelight songs in the tavern, quiet prayers in the candles' glow. In a world without much, they learned that peace wasn't something you found, it was something you made. And so you too can make it now. Tonight be the peasant who sang under moonlight. Be the knight who laid down their armor. Be the queen who ruled her dreams, not her fears. You are not behind, you are not alone. You are exactly where healing begins. Close your eyes now. The stars will keep watch, the story will continue tomorrow. But tonight let the night hold you gently. And if you wake in the dark hours, don't be afraid. Just remember, even in medieval times, dawn always came, and it always will. Good night, brave soul. Sleep well under the light of your own quiet lantern. You are safe. You are loved. You are enough. And so the lantern glowed, not just in Elderglen, but in the hearts of those who had once passed through the healer's door. Word of it spread not by parchment or town crier, but through whispers in the wind, lullabies hummed by mothers, or murmured prayers offered by soldiers on sleepless watches. Malin, still cloaked in her grey wool robe, would sit by the lantern each night, not to tend it, for it needed no fuel, but to listen. For the lantern did not just shine, it remembered. It caught the echoes of every heart that stood near it, joys, sorrows, regrets, longings. And sometimes, if the night was still enough, you could hear it too. One such night, when the frost had begun to lace the window panes and even the wolves had fallen quiet, a visitor came to the door of Malin's cottage. She was cloaked in blue velvet, damp with sleet, and her boots were worn from many miles. Beneath the hood was a young woman with eyes too old for her face, and in her arms she carried a lute wrapped in linen. "I've come from Hollowmere," she said softly, as though afraid of waking something. "They say you can help the broken." Malin looked at her and simply nodded. "Then come in and let the night do the rest." The girl's name was Elira, a bard once. She had sung in the courts of nobles, danced beneath chandeliers, and made jesters weep with songs of home. But war had come to Hollowmere, and her music had fallen silent among the ashes. She had not played in many moons. Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped the lute before the lantern's glow. The strings had snapped, but the wood was whole. "I don't know if I can play again," she whispered. "You don't need to play," Malin replied. "You only need to remember that you can." And so they sat together, the healer and the bard, not speaking, not touching, but simply being. And in the silence, the lantern hummed gently, like a lullaby too ancient for words. Elira did not strum that night, but in her sleep her fingers twitched like they remembered. And when dawn came, a single note rang from the lute, not loud, not perfect, but true. And still the lantern waited. Many more came. An old knight who had not drawn his sword in years arrived with knees too stiff to kneel and memories too sharp to forget. He placed his battered helmet before the lantern and asked not for youth, but for peace. A young scribe came ink-stained and tired from copying sermons she no longer believed. She stayed 3 nights, and when she left, she carried no answers, but her hands no longer shook. A cook from the monastery who'd never known a day without service arrived in silence and asked for nothing. She sat on the hearth and wept into her apron. When she left, Malin gave her thyme and rosemary, and she laughed for the first time in years. The lantern did not heal wounds in an instant. It did not promise miracles or riches or love. What it gave was softer, subtler, and far more rare. It gave people back to themselves. And now, dear dreamer, perhaps you feel a little of that lantern's warmth glowing in your chest. Not fire, not lightning, just the steady ember of I'm still here. Sometimes that's enough to light a whole new path. But let me take you further still into another tale buried deep in the moss and dust of the forgotten Middle Ages. This one is about a prince, not the kind with a shining crown or silken cloaks, but a boy named Ivar who lived in a crumbling castle at the edge of the world. He was called the Hollow Prince, for he laughed at the right times and said the right words, but something in his eyes never quite reached the surface. The courtiers said he was cursed, that some ghost had hollowed him out and left the shell to walk. But the truth was simpler. Ivar had never been allowed to be a boy. From the moment he could walk, he had been taught to bow, to lead, to wield a sword, heavier than his joy. One day, tired of the weight, he fled the castle. Disguised in a traveller's cloak, he wandered into the forests and followed the tales of a lantern that could restore lost things. When he reached Elderglen, Malin offered him bread, but he refused. "I'm not hungry for food," he said. "I'm hungry for something I don't have words for." She smiled. "Then stay until the words come." For 3 days and nights he sat beneath the oak outside the cottage. He spoke to no one. He sang no songs, he simply watched the wind moving through the leaves and felt something stir where silence had long lived. On the 4th night, he whispered to the lantern, "I want to be real, not what they made me." And for the first time in his life, Ivar wept without shame. You see, not all battles are fought with blades. Some take place in the quiet moments when no one sees you bleeding. But tonight, dear one, you are allowed to lay down your sword. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to simply be no mask, no duty, no expectation. Let your muscles loosen. Let your thoughts untangle. Let your breath return to the rhythm it had before the world told you to hurry. There is no danger now. Only the night, only the stars, only the sound of your own heart steady and strong. And it is strong even if it's tired, especially if it's tired. Now imagine this: you walk through Elderglen in a dream. The forest greets you with silence, not the kind that frightens, but the kind that welcomes. Owls blink from branches above. Ferns curl around your boots. You pass Rowan's lantern still glowing with memory. You see Malin's window candle-lit and warm. She sees you too. She doesn't ask you what brought you here. She simply nods and pours tea. In that world, you are not behind. You are not strange. You are not broken. You are part of the tapestry, stitched together with knights and bards, and bakers and children who chased fireflies in the dark. You belong. And when you wake, yes, you will wake, the day will come. Perhaps it won't be easy. Perhaps you'll feel the weight return like armor on your shoulders. But it will fit differently. Because now you know something others don't. You know how to rest. You know how to return. You know that in the quiet woods of your soul, there is a lantern still burning. And every time you breathe, you feed that flame. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need to be loud to be worthy. You don't need to finish everything to be enough. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. So now lay back, the blanket hug your frame like chainmail that protects not your body, but your hope. Let your fingers unclench, let your jaw loosen, let your eyelids fall. The medieval world sleeps around you, quiet, ancient, sacred. And so should you. Good night, brave traveler, you've come far. And tomorrow you will rise again. But for now, may the stars stitch dreams into your heart. May the moon kiss your brow with grace. And may your spirit, strong and gentle, find peace in the oldest magic of all rest.